There's no time.
The time is
13
o'clock.
Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. It's episode 174.
Yeah, this one's Kuklinski, the Iceman.
Richard, the Iceman.
The Iceman.
Kuklinski.
Probably one of the most notorious, most renowned mafia hitmen of all time.
Contract killer.
That's ever been apprehended, at least. And according to this story, I tell you what, well, if I was ever locked up with this dude and in the same cell with him, I'd be calling him Mister Kuklinski. Yes, sir, and no, sir. This dude fucking kill you deader than shit.
Well, the reason that I wanted to do the show eventually was because you happened to mention, I don't remember what show it was on, but it was like we were talking about some other serial killer or something like that, and you said the only one of these dudes that ever scared you was this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's dead now, but I mean...
He was big, intelligent.
Yeah, he's a very, very large person.
Well-trained. He knew his craft well. Cold-blooded. Deadly.
He did not give a single shit.
No. And not an amateur by any stretch of the imagination. This dude lived to terrorize gangsters. That's what he did. And anybody else who got in his way.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about it is that while I think that probably some of the murders that he has claimed that he committed, like the number of the murders, I think is probably exaggerated. But I'm not doubting that he killed a lot. I mean, ultimately he was convicted of killing 6 people. And, you know, at varying times, he has confessed to killing between 100 and 300 people altogether. I don't know if the number is that high. Like I said, he might be exaggerating because, you know, later...
forgotten.
He might have.
Because there were just a lot of contract killings, and some of it was just if you pissed him off, he killed you.
Yeah, he was...
just bold-faced about it. He'd do it in traffic.
Yeah.
He would do it in nightclubs. He would do it behind nightclubs. He didn't give a shit.
That was the strange thing about him, is that, yes, he made his money as a contract killer, as well as doing other criminal activities as well. But it just seemed like if you just, like, annoyed him a little bit, he would hold a grudge for a really long time.
Yeah.
He had anger issues, to put it mildly. Yeah. But, you know, you cut him off in traffic, he'd just kill you.
Well, he hated other gangsters, and he didn't have any friends because he knew eventually he'd kill you anyway.
Yeah.
So,
but I think he did end up saying that he killed all of his friends.
Yeah, he killed everybody he knew.
And that one friend was the guy that ended up indirectly getting him arrested.
If he knew you and got to know you too well, he'd probably have to kill you.
Yeah.
It'll all make sense when we tell.
And he didn't seem too broken up about it either. This guy seems like, and this is why I kind of find him really fascinating. He seems just like a perfect sociopath. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is a dark warrior. This guy would have made a good soldier also, and maybe special forces, if he was the right kind of guy. He's not the right kind of guy.
Yeah.
But he's the right kind of guy to work for organized crime syndicates. You know, yeah, he could work for them.
It seemed like he was born to do
that
that
kind
shit.
of guy. Yeah.
Because it's like, this is fucked up.
He wasn't some guy that just, you know, depended on, you know, firepower to get him through. You know, he would kill you barehanded or just with a damn piano wire,
tire iron,
grenade,
allegedly,
poison.
Anything. He was big on that.
I think he killed,
whatever was to hand.
I think he
really
killed a guy with a pool cue,
crossbow.
Yeah, it's just
he wasn't particular.
He didn't like to have a pattern. That way, it always looked like a different person.
Yeah, and I think that's why it took them so long to kind of like connect all these crimes as being committed by one person.
And he was a physically powerful guy. He could just choke you into oblivion.
Yeah. He was a very, very, very large individual. Yeah, and very scary.
Yeah.
And
bright, very intelligent.
Yeah.
For you know, we're not talking about a Rhodes Scholar or anything.
Yeah, he didn't finish high school or anything like that. But
his situational awareness and his knowledge of humans and human behavior was very good.
Yeah.
You did not want this guy on your tail. You were a dead man.
Yeah, I would not have wanted to piss this guy off ever. And like I said, it's like, even though as I said, since he was convicted ultimately of killing 6 people and probably killed more than that, they're not really sure how many because some of the shit that he said later is probably not true. But, you know, even those 6 people, that technically puts you in the category of serial killer, but because he did not have like a psychosexual motivation...
Yeah. Not really a serial killer.
Really a serial killer in that sense, like in the psychological sense. He was a contract killer and he like took money for hits, but he also just killed people just because of anger.
Yeah. Everybody we pretty much talked about so far was just like some kind of sicko, nasty sucker. You know, they don't really scare me even though they're fucking gross. You know what I mean? Or then they make you mad. They make me mad, a lot of them.
Yeah.
This one scares me. I mean, I just wouldn't go up this, you know.
Yeah,
I could take him by ambush in a pre-planned ambush, waiting for him to walk by. That anybody can do that, but you don't want this dude on your tail. This guy is the real deal.
Well, and the scariest thing,
even if he's lying about half the shit,
yeah,
this is still the real deal.
Well, because the thing that's scariest about him, I think, is that one, for a long time, he kind of got away with being a contract killer and his family not knowing, like a lot of people just thinking he was just a regular family guy or like a businessman.
Yeah.
Also, he seemed really, like I said, he had really bad anger issues and you weren't really sure what was going to set him off because like his family would be like, you know, a lot of times he was like normal, he was like really nice and stuff like that, but you never knew like when he was going to flip.
He could just click out on
so
him.
It's like you might say something that he didn't like and then he would remember that and then like later on you'd be walking down the street and he would just shoot you in the back of the head. You know what I mean? So it's like that's what made him scary, was that he wasn't predictable.
He could do it like it was nothing and he could get away with it consistently.
Yeah, well he did.
He had a method of getting away with it consistently.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it took them a very, very long time.
Cold, calculated.
Yeah. And although, like I said, I do recommend, because HBO did a 3-part series about him, like over the years. I think like one part came out in the 90s, and one came out in the early 2000s. Yeah. And I think they're all on YouTube. I watched them. So like somebody like put them all together. It's like 2.5 hours. And these are just like interviews with him. Like 1/3 of it is like a psychiatrist interviewing him. Another third of it is like a writer, and another third. And he's just kind of like talking about all the shit he did. And like I said, the creepy thing about it is that he's just very, very calm. He doesn't really get upset about anything. It's like he doesn't really seem to like feel anything about anything.
What was his job, and he enjoyed his work, I guess, and it was just kind of routine for him.
Yeah.
Most of it. The thrill of it, I think, was long gone, but he'd get mad.
Yeah.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
If you made him mad, even if you didn't know him, chances are he'd kill you right then.
Yeah.
And get away with it.
Yeah.
He knew how to do it.
Yeah. Oh. So that's, like I said, that's what, and I'd been wanting to do a show about him for a while because, like I said, when you were talking about him, and I had remembered like reading about him and seeing like the interviews like back in the day, and I was like, yeah, we need to do a show about that guy. And I was like, we'll do it in December because he's called the Iceman.
Yeah.
You know. All right. So anyway, before we get into that, let's do a couple of shout outs. Like to say hello to our latest patron, whose name is Rebecca. Hey there. Thank you very much.
Right.
Also like to give a shout out to Jason for giving us a very generous PayPal donation as a Christmas present.
Yeah, I think
very, very much appreciated.
Wasn't it 50?
Yeah, that is super awesome.
Thanks, Jay.
Yeah, and like if you watched our matinee show, but I think it was on the matinee show where we said about how we just had to spend $1,200
$1,200 on a car,
getting my fucking car.
And then actually more than that, we put in basically another $200.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we put in almost
battery
another. Yeah, because the battery was dead. Also, we found out.
Yeah, and I put a new gas cap, which I think that's where that damn vacuum leak was.
Yeah, because we've had a vacuum leak for a really long time and we couldn't find it.
And then I got a new mounting system for the battery, so it's not rattling around in there.
My poor car.
Yeah,
it's old, but it's still like
it's only got 138
serviceable.
138,000 miles.
It's a 2004 Ford Taurus, you guys.
Yeah, that's an old sleeper car. You know, it's almost kind of like you just kind of get lost in the crowd with that thing. But I'll tell you what, man, those Ford Tauruses, they were around forever. It's still basically the same car that came out like in '84. Basically.
And I mean, to be fair,
they're just rock solid. You can drive them forever.
I mean, to be fair, I haven't put that much money into that car.
No.
Like I bought it used for like $1,400 or something.
Yeah.
I've had to put very little money. It's like fairly reliable. Yeah, the alternator went out and shit like that.
I remember the first time I saw one of those things, man, it was in RoboCop. I was living in Detroit at the time. We thought that was the most futuristic fucking car ever. was a damn. I tell you how to do it. I take your car and paint it flat black.
Yeah.
Semi-matte black, and put those OCP stickers on there.
You can do that. You can
drive
do that
around like RoboCop.
Okay.
You drive that?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are you, crazy?
Well,
do you know me at all?
Here's the deal. We don't do it with paint. We'll do it with that damn spray rubber. What do they call that shit?
Yeah.
Because it can just peel off.
Yeah.
What do they call that shit?
Oh my god, that would be
yeah.
That'd be fucking awesome. You should do that.
We'll put
I hadn't even thought of that until you said
it. Put some OCP stickers on it.
Yeah, now
I think it had a light bar on it though. We couldn't get away with that.
Well, no, that's probably not legal.
No.
We could pull people over
funny.
and like pretend we were RoboCop. Now I really want to do that. Why did you give me that idea? I can't believe you thought that I wouldn't drive a car that was painted like the car in RoboCop. Of course I would.
It'd be easy to paint that car that color.
Of course I would. Holy shit.
It'd be easy to paint that car that color. The thing is that semi-matte black, it looks dirty. When it gets dirty, it looks very dirty.
Yeah, I know.
That's the only thing that
And I
sucks
for
about it.
real let that car get dirty. I never wash it.
Yeah.
He took it to the car wash today.
And it gets hot.
True.
And it would burn you up in Florida. We're not going to do that.
Well, you suggested it.
Yeah. That new AC it's just blowing ice cubes.
Good.
Yeah, it's like blowing ice cubes.
I mean, it's not good now because it's winter, but it's
1 year warranty on it.
But we'll be thankful for it next July. I'm sure.
$700 worth of air conditioning in it, sucker.
It better be fucking cold for $700 fucking dollars. All right, so so
you guys see water spots? I'm not peeing. It's drops coming off the bottom of this drink.
He's not peeing.
I'm not peeing.
He just I don't know. You're protesting a lot. Now,
it fell. Look at it fell. Look at it.
Yeah. Okay, I see it. Well, see, now the cool thing is now, if you wanted to, you actually could pee.
I could just piss.
And everyone.
This is my drink.
Yeah, because you're you're front loading that shit.
Yeah. That shit would make its way out to
plan.
like fucking Pornhub or some shit like that. Yeah, some kind of fetish.
Everything is going to be on Pornhub.
Yeah.
Everything's a fucking fetish.
Yeah.
That would be really funny. That's another good idea. So if you pee in the chair, I'm going to put it on Pornhub.
No, man.
All right, I'm just kidding. All right, so again, thank you, Rebecca and Jason, for your contributions to the show. We're going to
do a Christmas special coming up.
Yeah, and we were just talking about it earlier because I was... You know how I do. It's like, I knew, I was like, oh, okay, Christmas special. I had it like penciled into the calendar, and then I'm like, oh shit, that's like the next show. What am I going to do for that?
I think it's going to be ghosts. Ghosts or like Christmas ghosts and ghosts.
Or we might do shit about like you said,
paranormal
like elves, stuff. Little people.
Yeah, something like that.
Yetis, maybe. Just that, like, winter adjacent paranormal
It's going to be a
stuff.
Variety show.
Well, like the Thanksgiving one we did, where everything was kind of like colonial America shit. I just, I like to have like kind of a loose structure, because otherwise I don't know what I'm going to talk about, and I'll just sit here going, yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, so another thing that I want to announce is that if you are a $20 and up patron, and you know who you are, probably get me if your size of your t-shirt by the end of this week. Some of 8 or 9 of you have already done that, and that's awesome. I appreciate that, but there's still a few of you that haven't. I sent out messages on Patreon, so if you want a shirt, then send me your size by the end of the week, because we're going to order the shirts and start printing them and then start mailing them sometime before Christmas.
We got the design. Where is it?
It's over there, like behind my chair, like in the box.
It wouldn't make sense to them, though. It's just a clear piece of plastic with a design on it.
Well, yeah, it's transparency.
For
doing the screen.
It's going to look good.
I hope so. It's like the transparency came out really nice. I was super happy about it. So yeah.
And thanks to one of our subscribers, might be a Patreon member, gave us the web address of a fucking service that'll...
It was Mary.
Okay, Mary. Yeah. Thanks.
She gave us the Jiffy shirts. Yeah,
that's
what we're going to use from now on, because
that's a good service.
They have like a bunch of stuff, and it's cheaper than.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind going to Michael's if I have to, because they usually have a lot of shirts, but sometimes they don't have enough of the sizes we need, and
that we can fill an order through that.
Yeah, it'll be much easier, and there's a lot more variety of different kinds of shirts, which is handy. Also, I mentioned this before, but I think starting in the new year, I'm going to start doing, just as kind of like a little sideline thing, another little show that'll just be like me reading scary stories. Usually like old ghost stories, some of my own stories. If you want to submit one, you can do that too. And I'll put your name and the name of the story at the end credits. I think I have 4 or maybe 5 episodes done. So I'll start putting those up probably New Year. Okay. I don't know. I haven't decided what day to put them up or anything like that. I think that's probably about all the shout outs. Yeah. All right.
We can talk about Kuklinski now.
So let's talk about Richard Leonard Kuklinski.
Mr. Kuklinski to you.
Mr. Kuklinski. Yeah. Sir.
Mr. Kuklinski.
Like I said, at least he's dead now, so it's like we're not going to get
got a heart attack or something?
Yeah, although he told his family that he had been poisoned because he did die at like a very when he was going to be testifying against another gangster.
That could be true.
So I'm not sure how true that is. They did do an autopsy and they thought it was just a heart attack.
Okay.
But he seemed to think that someone was poisoning him.
Huh.
And it was kind of convenient, like
Weird.
when he died. Like the gangster that he was supposed to testify against, actually, the case against him collapsed because he was like their main witness. So yeah, Kuklinski, commonly known as the Iceman, and we'll get into why that is later on. Also known as the One-Man Army.
Yeah.
Because he was a huge dude. He was 6'5", almost 300 pounds. Really, really big, scary looking
He
fella.
could come at you any way he wanted to.
Yeah.
He wasn't a guy that was dependent on firearms.
No, like I said, he would use anything.
Yeah.
And he liked to experiment with different things. Seemed like he was just kind of curious about
this dude was something else, man. He would take orders.
Yeah.
Like if you had a specific order, I want this guy killed in a certain way, and he'd go, okay, and he'd just give you a price.
Yeah.
And some of that shit was gruesome.
One thing that he said, and I'm going to say this right, it's just like as a little bit of a teaser. I'm not sure if this is real or not, because like I said, he did exaggerate some stuff, because he said that he was involved in some kind of famous mob murders that they think was not that likely for him to be involved in. You know what I mean? But he did say, he didn't say who this was, but he said, one time I got an order to kill this one guy, and the person who ordered the hit, apparently they wanted to send a message, so they wanted this guy's tongue cut out and then stuck up his ass.
Yeah.
Because I guess he was talking out his ass?
Talking out his ass.
Something
wanted them to taste. They wanted him to taste his ass. Taste his ass. Something
but it's like, that was one thing that he said, like, that he had done.
Talks too much.
Just,
said the wrong thing.
Just as an example. I don't know if that really happened or not, but that was one thing that he said about, like, taking orders.
Well, a lot of the other stuff he said was true, so I think it's true.
Well, like I said, it's hard to say because some of the stuff, like some
of the stuff he said that he did, they didn't have any record of that crime ever happening.
Yeah, one. And two, he also said that he was involved in 3 very famous mob murders, including that of Jimmy Hoffa. And they don't think that is very likely.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's hard to say. I mean, he did do horrible shit. They just don't know if he exaggerated it somewhat, like later on. Because he did get like a lot of like people coming to his jail cell and wanting to talk to him and shit.
Some of the stuff that he did, he'd leave a body in a certain location and it was never found. And we'll probably get into that a little bit later.
Yeah.
And he's like, somebody found it, but I don't know who it was. Somebody took it away.
Yeah. Is that the one in the barrel?
One in the barrel.
Yeah.
But I think that might be plausible.
Yeah, I think he did do that one. I think that guy, I don't know. He was actually indicted for that murder. I don't know if he was convicted because they never did find that body.
Yeah, but that barrel sat out there for about a year, I think he said, didn't he?
It was a long time. I don't remember.
And I think I just think somebody just sent the barrel to the dump, never checked it.
And never checked it.
Yeah. But that's possible.
This is some fucked up shit, you guys. All right, so let's start talking about his childhood. Now, even though, like I said, even from, a psychological point of view, I guess, you wouldn't really call him a serial killer, maybe more like a mass murderer, contract hitman, whatever. But he did have a very serial killer-y upbringing, you know what I mean? And his youth was kind of like, he did have a lot of that kind of shit. Now, he was actually born really poor. His dad, Stanley, was a Polish immigrant and worked on a railroad. He was like a brakeman. His mom was actually Irish, or her parents were Irish. She was born here. And she worked in a meat packing plant when Richard was a kid. Now, this household was very, very abusive. His dad, like many serial killers, was a drunk, beat up on the wife and all the children. The mom was also allegedly abusive, used to beat Richard Kuklinski with a broom handle, breaking, like sometimes so hard that the handles would break. Also, there was kind of shit between, the mom and dad too. It's like, it's weird because one source I said that the dad stabbed the mom in the back, but then another source I read said that the mom stabbed the dad in the back. I think it was the mom stabbing the dad, like during an altercation.
Yeah.
The mom was also, and this is another thing that you see with a lot of these types of killers, was very, very, very religious, very, very, very strict. Thought that that's how you raised a kid. You just beat sense into them.
Some people get mad when I associate violence with religion, and they go, "Oh no, religion isn't about violence." That's not. Nobody's saying that.
Yeah.
What ends up happening a lot of times in some of these really poor, violent families, the dichotomy between the violence and the fucking maybe sexual abuse makes a really strong dichotomy with this religiosity.
Yeah.
So the kid grows up with inner conflicts.
Yeah.
You got to have one or the other. If you have two extremes at the same time, it fucks them up even worse.
Yeah, I mean, and that's definitely seems to be the case here. This is not, this is not a good situation by any stretch of the imagination. And like I said, I'm not excusing his later stuff, but, when you grow up in a household like this, and I'll kind of get into when he talks to...
If you're just bad, there's no conflict. If you're just good, there's no conflict. If there's good and bad happening at the same time, there's a lot of conflict.
Yeah.
It's not one thing or the other.
Yeah.
So it's like petting a dog and beating it at the same time. It makes it go insane, basically.
Well, yeah, because you never know what to expect. It causes neurosis.
Right.
Is what it does. It does it in animals. It does it in people.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I feel like there was some of that going on too. It's weird to think about because Kuklinski, I mean, he was such a big, imposing dude later on, but if you see pictures of him when he was a kid, and I did find one, he was actually pretty small. He was like a little bitty small kid. He had kind of, his little ears were sticking out. He was a cute little kid. But, even though, he was an altar boy when he was a kid, but very early on, he started, showing cruelty to animals. One thing that he said he would do, and this is horrible, and this really, really upsets me. He said that he used to find cats in the neighborhood and he would tie their tails together with rope and then he would hang them over
a line,
like a clothesline or something like that, and watch them fight and kill each other.
Yeah.
He would also take neighborhood cats and throw them in the incinerator in their building and just watch them run around and try to get away from the fire, and then they would all burn up.
Yeah.
He would also torture stray dogs that he found in the neighborhood while thinking about killing his dad, because he really wanted to kill his dad. Now, his dad, Stanley, as I said, was very abusive. And actually, they think that his dad killed Richard's older brother, Florian, when Florian was 8 years old, even though he was never arrested for it because they told the authorities that the kid fell down the stairs. But the kid did die, and they think that the dad beat him to death.
Yeah, well, that would be a huge moment in a boy's life to see your dad beat your older brother to death.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That would send you down a certain path where, well, if you have the power, you can do whatever you want. And that's basically... Yeah,
and I think that's kind of... Like I said, this was a bad situation all around. Right. And when he was older and he talked to the psychiatrist, Dr. Park Dietz, on the last HBO interview, that psychiatrist told him, what I think your problem was that you were probably born with this type of personality where you just have this kind of innate fearlessness, or you don't really, care about what happens to you.
It's like a kamikaze.
Yeah, and he's now that can go well, because he's people like that, are successful. They, race cars, or they're test pilots or something like that. He's sometimes that can be good, but if you are like that and you are raised in a situation where your parents are just fucking beating on you all the time. And he was also bullied in school because, like I said, even though he was very large later, he was kind of like a little skinny little kid. Yeah. So he got bullied a lot in school. And he kind of learned from a very early age that violence was how you solved problems.
Yeah. I was always under the impression, because of the way he grew up and the way he handled things, and based on what he said, that he saw himself as a man fighting evil. That's part of the way he saw himself. Like, for instance, his dad was when he was a little kid, his dad was a huge menace. Yeah. A Darth Vader type figure. Yeah. So you have to become strong and terrible. Yeah. You know what I mean? Fearsome to overcome something like that. And he's fantasizing about it. He wishes he had the power to kill his dad. Yeah. You know.
But he doesn't, because he's just a little kid. So he has to kill things that are weaker.
Right. Now, by the time he was an adult, he started killing people who slighted him, pissed him off.
And you didn't have to do much either, like, to get him mad.
No, but when you look at the details of the stories, especially at the beginning, he's in a real thug environment. And these are other bullies and thugs that are fucking with him. Mm-hmm. He's making them pay. Yeah. So he sees himself in a way of kind of like a warrior. You know what I mean? Almost kind of like a samurai. He's standing up for his own honor. He's doing what you're supposed to do, which is kill the enemy. Yeah. You know, it's a very soldier-type mentality. You know? Yeah. It's a tribal warrior, basically, is what you're dealing with.
And like I said, in the right circumstances...
That's a good quality.
That's a good quality to have.
Of course.
You know, but like I said, it depends on the context.
Yeah. He's not doing it for a nation or a state or anything like that with any kind of legal sanctions. He's doing it for himself. Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? That's all he knows. So I'm forgiving Kuklinski. Do you know what I mean? I can understand it.
The thing is, I can't forgive him because he just, if he had just killed other gangsters.
I'm talking about at this point.
At this point, like I said,
what ends up happening, he's indifferent to it. He'll just kill anybody.
Yeah, and he really, like I said, he really did not seem to feel anything about it. I mean, he even told the psychiatrist that, and he knew that wasn't right, that there was something wrong with him, but he didn't really understand why that was, because he's like, well, because the psychiatrist would ask him, he's like, well, how did you feel when you, like, dismembered the guy with a chainsaw, or for example, and he's just like, I didn't feel any way about it. Yeah. He's like, it smelled kind of bad. I put some canoe under my nose. That's like, he was just like very matter of fact, like he didn't really.
Well, yeah, he had kind of burned out those centers in his brain where it was normal for him, you know.
Yeah. That's what's so scary about him. He just he didn't care about anything. No. It's just like it didn't affect him at all.
But we'll tell more about it in the story. Let's go back to the timeline.
So, so he was a little kid. Like I said, his older brother Florian was killed by his dad, allegedly, when Florian was 8 years old. He also had a younger sister named Roberta, who, as far as I know, turned out okay. But he also had a younger brother named Joseph, who in 1970 was actually put in prison for raping and murdering a 12-year-old girl. He raped her, then he threw her and her dog off the roof of a building.
Who did this?
His younger brother.
That's right. Yeah.
And for a while, like later on in their life, after they were actually at the same prison. Yeah. But they asked him, like, do you ever talk to your brother? And he's like, not really. He's like, sometimes I walk past.
Where was this again? I forgot. It was in a real shitty area, but
I think it was Jersey City.
Jersey City.
Yeah, it was very, very poor. They were very
especially
poor.
Back in those days. It's probably like moved up since then. But I think back in the 60s, it was pretty fucking rough.
Yeah, it does seem like it was kind of the projects.
Yeah, even back, you go into the 70s, even New York itself was a fucking slum. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, I mean,
it's not the New York people know today.
It's gentrified a lot since then. And I mean, I was even there like many years ago, probably 10 or 15 years ago, and it's like way nicer than it used to be back in the old days.
I was in New York, I guess that was about 10 years ago, and it's like a rich neighborhood. Yeah. But back in the day, it was like as bad as Detroit. Detroit's gone now, you know, and I used to go to Detroit. I used to live in Detroit. Yeah. Detroit's basically gone now, you know. It's just, that whole culture's dead. Yeah. So, you know, it's just sitting there on fucking welfare. But that's the way Detroit was. That's the way New York kind of was. New York was worse, actually. because there's just
Well, yeah, it was kind of
density.
famous for being
Yeah, New York was worse.
like that. I mean, even if you see like movies, because we were just talking about like, you know, the Larry Cohen movie God Told Me To and stuff like that,
Yeah.
which was, you know, from the 70s. You can see, you know, the scumminess of like New York in the 70s, even up to like the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
But it's really nothing like that
nothing
anymore.
like that anymore.
It's nothing
It's all
like that
fucking
anymore.
posh and gentrified.
It's all gentrified.
and all these fucking, you know.
I mean, I've been there lots of
They
times.
got liberals in Detroit now. I mean, in New York now. Not back in the 70s. It was just fucking criminals.
Well, like I said, everything was dirty. There was rats everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, it's still like that in
It was
places.
punk rock and shit.
It was, like I said. I mean, I
Male
was there.
prostitution for fucking
I was
heroin
there
and shit was a big deal.
probably 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, I used to go pretty regularly, but you know, I saw one rat the whole time I was
Yeah.
there, like just kind of
You
running
want to see
around
the way
outside.
New York, New Jersey used to be back in the day? Go see a movie that had Dustin Hoffman called Midnight Cowboy. That's the way it was like
yeah, I remember
with
that.
Dustin Hoffman.
I remember that movie. Yeah, that's what it was like.
That's
Like
what
I
it was
said,
like.
it was kind of famous for being like
Yeah,
that.
people would just die of TB, you know, and fucking.
Yeah, well, and like look at like
People
the
were scripting
like,
for money for
look
trying
at
to
like
make
the early
food,
like
yeah.
punk rock scene. It's all like around
Yeah.
CBGBs and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Whereas you know, listen to Blondie and the Ramones and stuff like that. I mean, they were like squatting in like essentially abandoned
Yeah.
buildings and just
Yeah.
like laying there on mattresses and doing heroin and shit
Yeah.
like that. It was like that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I'm not saying there's not parts of it that are still like that,
It
but
was rat and roach infested.
yeah.
It was,
But I mean, I went kind of all over the place, and it's like it's not. There's hardly any of that left anymore.
Yeah.
All right, so. Like I said, Kuklinski, I don't think he finished school, but he was like, you know, fairly intelligent. He got bullied a lot at school. I'll kind of get into that a little bit later when I get into his like criminal career. I'm just kind of talking about his personal life right now. Now, it's weird because a lot of shit that I saw did not mention, you know, they mentioned his wife, Barbara, who, you know, there's like a lot of interviews with her, like talking about him and stuff like that. But what a lot of shit doesn't mention is that he was married to someone else when he met her. She was actually his second wife, even though like a lot, like I think I saw a documentary and it's like, I don't even think they mentioned that. But he had a wife named Linda. She was 9 years older than him. And they actually had 2 sons. Now, as I said, he had dropped out of school, but he was kind of working, you know, working class type jobs. He was working at a trucking company, and he met Barbara. Pedrici was her maiden name. She was like a secretary at this trucking firm that he worked at. So he like fell in love with her, and they started dating, and he eventually like left his wife and married Barbara in 1961. Now, the thing about this, and I think this happened before they were married, Barbara, because there's like a lot of interviews with her on various documentaries and shit, she said when she first met him that she's like, he was like, pretty much everything you'd want like in a man. He was like really romantic. It's like, she's like, he brought me flowers all the time. It's like, he always wanted to be with me. He was really awesome. And all this other kind of shit. But while they were still dating, she kind of saw the dark side of it. You know what I mean? Because apparently they'd been going out for a while, and she's like, most of the time it was good, but he seemed real, like he would flip, like I said. He just said, you know, most of the time he was just really nice, and it's like you'd never think anything. And then suddenly he'd get a wild hair across the crack of his ass, and boom, he would just be changed like that. She's like, he was like Jekyll and Hyde.
I think he had kind of like, because of his fucking kind of schizo upbringing, he had a bunch of like, almost kind of like PTSD. And he'd kind of go through these flashbacks. He'd think people were going to betray him, or he would think that people were talking bad about him or thinking bad about him, or maybe they were plotting against him, you know. Paranoia, things
and
like that.
the psychiatrist said that too. They said one thing that he did have probably was paranoid personality disorder, where he thought everyone was out to get him, or everyone was like talking bad about him. That would like make him angry.
He had to be that way in order to survive. He was constantly trying to put himself in the place of the enemy and see things the way the enemy saw things. So if somebody said something fishy, he'd try to put himself in your position and try to see himself through your eyes, which would really fuck him up. Oh, so this is what you're thinking about me? Oh, you think that I'm doing it? Oh, this is what you think about me. That's what he's fucking doing.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'll beat your ass for even thinking that about me. You know what I mean? How does he know what another person's thinking? You didn't think that about him.
Yeah.
That's what he thinks
but
you would think.
That's his perception.
Right, yeah.
And I mean, the same thing kind of happened apparently while him and Barbara were still dating, like before they even got married. He got like really upset at her for whatever reason one time, and she wanted to break up and say she wanted to go like, date other people. And apparently they were in a car together, and he like pulled a hunting knife from somewhere and like stuck it like either in the back of her neck or like the back, like not all the way in, but like stuck it so enough that it would bleed. And basically said, if you ever leave me, I'll kill your entire family. So she thought at this point that she didn't really have a choice. Yeah. You know what I mean? You have to think this is like the early 60s too. I feel like nowadays, I don't know. I don't want to say nowadays like women would put up with that shit, because some women would. But I think back then she was like, well, most of the time he's okay. So maybe it'll be all right. Or maybe I'll just try not to piss him off. And then maybe...
Societal awareness wasn't as great back then.
That's true, too.
Information and stuff wasn't.
And I feel like a lot of like... It was almost like... I don't know. It's like it was almost like accepted. Because like I'm thinking about like shit my grandmother used to say. You know what I mean? It was almost kind of like accepted
that dudes were dicks,
and that you could slap your wife around, and that's just what happened, and women were just supposed to put up with it because that's just how they did. You know what I mean? Yeah, I feel like there was a lot more acceptance. I mean, from talking to my grandmother and people of that generation,
I think it was just that generation, and you know where I think that's coming from? I think it's a post-war mentality.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Guys coming back from World War II, and they're pretty fucking amped up. And they kind of resort to violence first.
Yeah,
that's what they knew.
Yeah, so it seemed like
I think a lot of that wife beating epidemic of the '60s was really, and '50s and '60s was really a thing of fucking World War II.
I think so too.
I think
and like I said, and that's
it's
probably
not really around anymore. So was alcoholism. Those dudes drank themselves to death.
Yeah, it's like, think about how common that is. You hear about that like from back then.
Yeah, you just don't see alcoholics like you used to.
Yeah, you really don't. I mean, yes, there are still alcoholics, but it's
you don't see the big lemon nose motherfuckers walking around anymore.
Not really, no.
That was something.
Now that I think about it.
Yeah. When I was a little kid, I saw lots of them. They're all dead now. They were old men.
Yeah.
When I was a little kid. They had a nose like a damn lemon with veins in it and all kinds of shit.
You saw dudes like that on TV.
Yeah, and they would just stumble around. They'd drink, and they were like older than my dad. Yeah. They were like my grandfather's generation.
Yeah.
And they just drank themselves to death. That's World War II.
I do feel like that was probably like a large factor. And like I said, I think that was kind of like... I think that's why maybe domestic violence was like maybe more accepted back then too, because it's like, oh, well, the guys, they came back from the war and they were all messed up, and it's just like, that's just what happens, and you just have to deal with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They didn't know any better.
Yeah. So I feel like, you can say, well, she shouldn't have married him, or this and that.
It was probably more common back then.
It's more common back then, and two, at that point, like when the dude's gonna fucking stab you and said, hey, if you leave me, I'm gonna kill your whole family. I mean, I would take that seriously if I were you.
Yeah.
So she was probably like afraid.
This is before he was a hitman, though, I think.
Yes, although this was before he was a paid hitman.
Okay.
Although, according to him, by the time that he married Barbara in 1961, he estimated that he had already killed 65 people, just who pissed him off and whatnot.
So he already killed the guy in the bar with a pool cue and shot.
Apparently, because like I said, he says that he killed a bunch of people before that just because they made him mad, before he started getting paid for it. You know what I mean?
I know I was always under the impression he couldn't remember everybody he killed.
I don't think he could.
No.
Because like I said, I think
a lot of those numbers I remember him throwing out were just kind of nebulous. It was like about this or maybe like this.
Yeah, it's like the first interview, because like I said, the HBO interviews were kind of like a few years apart. Like one was from like the mid to late 90s, one was from 2001, and I think one was from 2004 or something like that, because I think he died in 2006, I want to say. But so it seemed like every time they interviewed him, like it got a little bit higher. Because I think the first one he just said, oh, maybe like 100 people, I'm not really sure. And then the second one, he's like, oh, maybe more like 200. And then like the third one, he was more like more than 200.
Because some of them he remembered.
He did.
He was just like, remember that he did one. Oh, I forgot about that one.
Yeah. Like I said,
because I believed him though. I don't think he was lying.
I don't, like I said, some of the shit I think is exaggerated, but I do think he probably killed a lot of people and he got away with it.
Yeah.
I mean, because like I said,
a lot of it had to do with the time and the place.
Yeah.
He was doing this in a bad neighborhood in a time where cameras weren't everywhere.
Yeah.
Because I remember they asked him, they said, could you do this today? And they were asking him this about 10 years ago. Could you get away with it? And he goes, most of it I couldn't get away with.
Yeah.
He says, not nowadays.
Well, because a lot of the shit he would just do in public.
Yeah, he did. He said there's too many cameras.
Yeah. Yeah, he would just like do it in the fucking street in a bar.
While you were sitting at a stoplight. You just fucking blow your head off with a shotgun and then ride off because he rode a motorcycle around.
Yeah, he did that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, blow your head off with a shotgun.
And they asked him about that, and he said, "Well, that was a contract hit, I think."
Yeah.
Because he said he had a picture of the guy.
Yeah.
But he's like, I pulled up next to him in the car, and he's like, I wasn't sure if it was the right guy, but like I
nice
called
watch.
his name. Yeah, and he's like, and he turned his head and he said something like, "Fuck you." And then he's like, "No, fuck you." Yeah. And then he shot. He's like, he had a sawed-off shotgun. Yeah. And he's like, and his head he just blew his head completely off. Yeah. And they asked him how he felt about that, and he just said, "Oh, I was just kind of surprised. I didn't think it was going to blow his head completely off." That's like all he said, like super calm like that. And like the psychiatrist's like, well, most people, when they see something really horrible like that, like it affects them in some way. He's like, "No, I was just surprised. Yeah. I didn't expect it to blow his head off." That's like it. That's all he. Yeah. So he'd
already killed a bunch of people before.
Yeah, he didn't really give a shit.
Well, I don't know why they were so amazed, because guys that have extensive combat records, who killed a bunch, they're kind of like that too. They're they were walking down the fucking path here, and the machine gun was set up, and I fucking mowed them all down. How many do you think that was? I don't know, probably about 30.
Yeah.
Well,
I think there comes a point where even a normal person, if you're put in a situation like that, you have to shut it off.
Yeah.
Or you will go insane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think I don't think so.
Or it just becomes routine.
Yeah. Well, I think what happens is in terms of fucking the combat that I know, which is infantry style warfare. It's the enemy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They would kill you.
Yeah.
If they saw you, and you're defending your friends.
Yeah.
And you're trying to keep the unit together and achieve the mission.
Yeah.
Yeah. You killed 30 of them. Okay, that was a good day.
Yeah.
Mowed them down.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can see
you're
that.
rewarded for it.
Right.
Your buddies are going, yeah, it was a good job.
Yeah.
So you have kind of like societal backup on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't really feel guilty about it because they would have done that to you and your buddies.
Yeah.
It's just part of the rules.
And that might be where Kuklinski was coming from too, because he probably thought it's gangsters, and he just probably thought, well, they would have done the same thing to me if the situations were reversed.
Right. So, and he's getting respect through his friends and his organizations that are other gangsters.
Yeah.
Respect and fear. So that's a reward.
Yeah.
Along with money. So
because apparently he made quite a bit,
and that enables you to deal with it a lot better.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, him and his family lived a pretty upper middle class lifestyle. Yeah. You know what I mean? He got a lot of money for.
He saw that dude's head blow up, and he was just like, "Yeah, all right."
He's like,
blew his head off.
Okay. Yeah. So, like I said, Barbara is quoted as saying pretty much that he was very, he's very kind of like bipolar type of thing. He's like, most of the time he was really awesome, but sometimes he would just flip, and you weren't really sure when that would happen. They actually had 3 kids together. 2 daughters, Merrick and Kristen, and also a son named Dwayne. She says stuff like he would buy the kids really expensive stuff. It's like he bought her a $12,000 raccoon coat, bought diamonds and all this other stuff, took him to expensive restaurants all the time, took him to Disney World every year. It's like, so he was kind of lavishing shit. If they had a really nice house in the suburbs in New Jersey, he would have barbecues for the neighbors every week and shit like that. Everyone just thought they were totally normal. However, when he was in one of his, what she called bad Richie moods, she called him good Richie and bad Richie. So when he was in one of his bad Richie moods, he'd start breaking furniture, throwing shit at her. He'd start beating the crap out of her. He broke her nose at least one time. I don't think he ever beat the kids, but he was kind of emotionally abusive toward them. Now, the daughter, Merrick, when she got older, she claimed once that when she got in trouble, he killed her dog in front of her.
Damn.
He also allegedly told her that, if I accidentally kill your mom in a rage one day, I'm going to have to kill all of you too.
Yeah.
Like all the kids. Because, you'd be
was telling the
witnesses. Yeah, so he did,
That's what he would have
allegedly, he did tell them that, like, according to them when they got older. Yeah, so there was that whole thing. Also, the daughter says that, and this kind of, like, feeds into, and makes me believe that probably he did kill people just for, like, cutting them off in traffic and shit like that, is that his daughter did say that, like, when they were in the car with him, he would get really, really, like, he'd have, like, road rage, you know what I mean? Like, now, if somebody just did something really minor.
I'd like to point something out. I watched the dude. I studied his fucking body language and everything. He's not insane.
No, he's not. No, I would not.
He's not insane.
No.
He's not like one of these guys that go, well, I'm going to kill my whole family and it doesn't affect me. He just had a lot of control over his emotions. When he's asked a difficult question, you can see him gritting his teeth and trying to swallow it and control his feelings, and then he gives you an answer.
Yeah.
So he's not a psychopath or a sociopath where he doesn't feel emotion. He does feel it.
Yeah.
I think he's emotionally volatile.
Yeah.
It's just that he controls it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he did a couple of times during the interviews, he
would
did...
go, you almost made me mad. And you
yeah,
could
he
tell
did say that to the psychiatrist.
Yeah, and he almost wanted to kill that guy.
Yeah.
He wanted to kill that guy, but he choked it back and stopped it, and he goes, you almost made me mad.
Yeah.
And
and he did get kind of emotional one time when he was talking about his family.
Wife. The only thing he ever regretted was abusing his wife.
Yeah.
And hurting his family about
Although one thing that he did say, and I found this very interesting, is that, he said that he was sorry about it and that he wished his family would forgive him. But then he said, he's like, well, I couldn't have been that sorry because I kept doing it.
Yeah.
He said that.
I understand where he's coming from.
So he had that much insight about it.
Yeah, well, he's an intelligent guy.
Yeah.
He just knew that it was, he had pathological behavior.
Yeah.
That he was just relentless. It had to do with, I believe, his early childhood. This is just what he was.
Yeah.
And he had a bunch of weird conflicts that kept arising. But that conflict is what fueled his career as a professional killer.
Yeah.
That's where the money was coming from.
Oh, yeah.
And doing it kept that ball rolling. As long as he was killing people, he was going to be volatile like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was just no way out of it.
Yeah.
And he wanted to have a family, but you just can't be a family man, a real family man, doing that kind of shit.
Yeah. Because that's what I was, like, that's one of the things that I was kind of curious about when I was watching that interview, like, watching him talk about his family, because he did tear up and he did choke up when he was talking about his family and how he didn't think they would forgive him and he wanted them to.
Yeah.
And he did say, he choked up too when he said that he would have done anything for his children. That he's like, if I had to kill this whole room full of you for them, then I would do that. You know what I mean? But it's really strange because I always wondered, it's like, at this point in his life, was he even capable of loving anyone?
I think so.
I don't know.
I think so.
It was hard for me to...
I think so. I just think he had a lot of demons that were driving him, and that was his job, and it took over him.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit and techniques and tactics that he uses. I don't know if you're going to get into them or not.
Yeah.
But he talks about them in detail in his interviews.
Yeah.
About if you're going to kill a target, best thing to do is to freeze it.
Yeah.
And then that way you
Which
can...
that's why they call him the Iceman.
The Iceman. That's where you...
And I'll get into that guy.
You going to get into it later?
Yeah.
Okay. If you freeze it, it helps you hide time of death.
Well, it would if you didn't mess it up like he
didn't fuck it up. Well, he in a way got very lazy because this became a mass production type job.
Yeah.
He did this shit regularly.
Yeah.
And he'd kind of lose track and it became routine. Which that's how he got fucking caught, is that he just stopped taking it seriously.
Yeah, I think he just got sloppy.
Yeah. Well, he just didn't think that you could get caught for killing people.
Well, he didn't get caught for a really long time.
So just like,
so I guess he just kind of got like, whatever.
Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing.
Now, apparently, according to, I read an interview with Barbara that I think was in, The Guardian or something like that. Now, she said that when their young daughter, Kristen, was a little bit older, that her and Kristen often plotted, they were actually going to poison him. They plotted it for like a really long time, but they never like quite had the balls to do it. They said, well, one thing was that he would always, and I don't know if he did this because he suspected that his family wanted to poison him, but he would like feed like parts of his food to like their dog. And they didn't want to kill the dog, obviously.
Right, yeah.
So they were kind of like afraid that would happen, because they were afraid, I guess they were afraid that he suspected. So they never did do it. But she did say later on, she's like, I wished him dead every single day.
Yeah.
Even though from the outside, they looked like the perfect family. They said, look, Kuklinski was like an usher, like at the church. It's like they had fucking barbecues for their neighbors every week. He just seemed like a normal dude. Now, Barbara did say, she's like, I never asked him, and this was probably another thing from the 60s. She never really asked him, like, what his business was. She just thought he was a businessman. She says that she suspected that maybe it was illegal. She didn't ever suspect that he was killing people for money, but she did suspect that maybe he was doing some illegal shit. But she's like, she never asked him. She's like, look, he'd get up in the middle of dinner, he'd get up in the middle of the night and say, I have to go to work, and he would leave. She's like, I never asked him where he was going, and he never told me. And another thing that Kuklinski did too was apparently, once he got involved, with various, crime families, he would never tell any of his associates where he lived. He would never tell them anything about his family. He wanted to keep everything compartmentalized. And he even said that in a lot of his interviews. He's like, look, I never wanted any of them at my house. I didn't want my family and my work life to be, combined. He wanted to be like family guy over here, contract killer over here. He didn't want any crossing over. He's like, no gangsters or anything like that ever came to my house or to my neighborhood or nothing. They didn't even know where he lived.
Yeah, and the weird thing about the guy is he wasn't really a part of any kind of family.
No, he was a freelance.
He was
pretty
just
much
a freelance guy, and different organizations would hire him to do it.
Yeah.
And, that he did it for small-time guys, and I think mostly small-time and middle-ranking type.
Yeah, I mean,
guys.
Pretty much anyone that would give
Anybody
him
who gave
money,
him money, he'd do it.
And say, hey, whack this guy. He'd be like,
Right.
all right.
And he ended up collecting some interesting fucking friends that trained, and one of them was an ice cream truck guy. I don't know if you're going to get into the ice cream truck guy.
Mister Softee.
Yeah, Mister Softee.
In the movie, it's Mr. Freezy, but he's Mister Softee.
It's hard to believe that a guy like Mister Softee existed.
Yeah.
But I guess he did.
Yeah, that was a real guy.
He was a serial killer that lived out of that worked out of an ice cream truck and poisoned people's dads. Basically,
he was like a mad scientist.
He's like a mad scientist
type
big
character.
Into poison. He learned everything about poisons from this guy, different ways to kill people. Which he tells stories about this ice cream truck driver. That's just a weird fucking tale.
I know. I said, now if you guys haven't seen, there is a movie that came out in 2012 with Michael Shannon in it playing Kuklinski, and it's called The Iceman, and it's actually really good. Even though some of it's fairly accurate, but some of it's kind of exaggerated, and some of it's they don't know if it really happened or not. But they kind of go into the Mister Softee thing. Although in the movie he's called Mr. Freezy.
And he hung out with him for I think at least a year.
It was a while, but I think he killed him, maybe, or somebody killed him.
Well, he said, they said, well, what happened to him? He goes, well, the more I found out about the guy, the more I realized I couldn't let him live. So he killed him. So he learned everything. He learned all the guy's knowledge and then killed him.
And then killed him. Yeah. So yeah. So now one thing
he didn't want that guy running around.
Yeah, well, like I said, he said later on, like in the prison interview, he said I killed pretty much all of his friends except one, and that was the one that ended up indirectly getting him arrested. So, we'll get into that later, but yeah. So, like I said, his wife said that she never asked him where the money was coming from because the money was pretty good and everything. An interesting thing about Kuklinski though is that unlike a lot of the other gangsters, he didn't really have any of the same vices that they had. Because a lot of the other gangsters, they were on drugs or they were drunks or they were, womanizers, gamblers. He did like to gamble, but that was about it. He didn't really drink. He didn't take drugs. He didn't, go run around cheating on his wife or anything like that. He didn't do anything like that. He was, kind of straight arrow, which was a little strange in that area. So, where are we at? All right, so we're almost at an hour, so let's take a break now, and when we come back, we will start talking about all of his criminal activities.
Yeah.
So...
I got to make a drink.
We'll get into the fun stuff. Oh my goodness, your drink's empty. You're almost empty already. All right, so we're going to take a break now, and we will be back in just a few.
Hey, Poofy. What you doing? What you doing? Yeah, just chilling? Yeah, look at this little belly. Oh, she's very sensitive about that. You're very sensitive about that. It's cute. I'm not making fun. I promise. You're mad though, because look at your little tail twitching. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Oh, my goodness. You just gonna lay there at the entrance to Mommy's office? Yeah. Mommy's home alone. Daddy went to pick up the car. Yeah. What you gotta say, Pookie? Why are you mad? Why are you mad? You look like you're mad. Yeah. Am I harsh in your buzz? Harsh in your mellow? Okay. I'll stop. You got a yawn? I see it. I see it in your face.
You love true crime. I love true crime. And I've spent the last 3 years compiling a series of the most intriguing unsolved murders of the 20th century. It's called The Faceless Villain, and Volume 3 is available now. Featuring such fascinating cases as the Keddy murders, the Carrie Babies case, the Frog Boys, the Alcasar murders, and the Inokashira Park dismemberment incident, The Faceless Villain Volume 3 is an involving exploration of unsolved slayings spanning the years from 1980 to 1999. Pick up your copy in print or ebook formats on Amazon, or download the audiobook version from audible.com, and get ready for a chilling journey through modern crime history. All right, we're back. Tom has refreshed his drink.
Yeah, refresh that one.
This
is a different one today. What I'm doing is I got silver tequila in there.
Yeah.
Citrus flavored Red Bull and some lime juice.
Oh.
It's
what
good.
Wait, is that a thing, or do you have a name
It's
for
a thing.
that?
That's what they gave me when I was up in Tampa.
Oh, that's right.
Remember
I forgot
that?
all about that.
So I do this one too.
So you're making that one at home now. Mm-hmm. That's right. We had to go buy the yellow tropical Red Bull just for that.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to replicate it at home.
Yeah.
All right. So talking about Richard Kuklinski, now we kind of went into like his personal life, his past, and shit like that. So now we're going to talk about his criminal history.
Yeah.
Now, according to him, and like I said, yes, I'm sure he killed a lot of people. Some of the shit he said you probably have to take with a grain of salt, because I think he did have a tendency to exaggerate.
We grandstand a little bit.
Right. So, I don't know how much of this is true or not. According to him, the first murder that he committed happened in 1948 or 1949. He was 13 or 14 years old. Apparently, there was this kid who was his age, or maybe a little bit older, named Charlie Lane, who... he was kind of like the head of this neighborhood gang. They were called the Project Boys. They lived in the same neighborhood as him. And they were always, like, picking on him. Because I guess, like I said, when he was young, he was, like, really small. And he had kind of, like, sticky outy ears and whatnot. So I guess they kind of picked on him. So he had been bullied. And he was getting beat up by these kids all the time. So at one point, he just decided he wasn't going to take it anymore. And he actually took... Now, I've heard different sources say either a big wooden dowel, or that he took, like the steel rod out of the closet, like the shit you hang your thing on, that he took that out. And then he went and found this kid and just started beating the shit out of him. Now, according to him, he didn't intend to kill this boy, but that he beat him so much that he just killed him. Right. And then he was just like laying there not moving, and he's like, oh shit, I killed him. Now, he said later on that he felt bad about it at first. He was only 13 or 14 years old at the time. But that later on he kind of came to terms with it, and he was just like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's just how shit goes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I guess when you make that jump across that line at such an early age, you adapt to it a lot faster.
Yeah.
You're like, by the time you're 15, it was like, oh, that was a long time ago I killed that dude. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember when you were a kid,
when
shit that happened.
2 years. Oh, that's a long time ago.
Man, that was a lot. I wasn't even the same person.
So you're able to just kind of incorporate it.
And it probably that's what happened.
You're like, oh, yeah, people kill each other, and that's how it goes. And that's just, you get what you ask for. That kind of stuff.
Well, and like I said, he probably thought, in his 13, 14-year-old mind, he thought, well, these kids have been picking on me all this time, so he had it coming.
Yeah.
And he said later, I don't know if this is true or not, but he did say, I didn't really intend to kill him, but I just started beating him, and he just died. Now, earlier on, I think he said originally that he beat the kid to death. When he realized the kid was dead, he just left him in the woods somewhere, later on in a later interview, he actually said, no, I took the kid's body, I cut off his fingertips with a hatchet, and then I pulled his teeth out, like with pliers, I would assume, so he wouldn't be identified, and then I threw him off a bridge in South Jersey. I'm not sure if that's true or if that was just like a later exaggeration.
Yeah, how did a 13-year-old boy concoct
That's what I'm
that?
saying. It's like, how did he get the kid? Like, how far away was this bridge that he was taking this kid to? What, he put him in a wagon or something?
Yeah.
And then, like, he pulled his teeth out and cut his fingers off? I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not debating whether he killed the kid. Maybe he did. But I'm just saying, I think at first he just said, yeah, I beat him to death, and then I just, like, left him in the woods somewhere. Now, they've never found this kid's body, as far as I know. So I don't know. This could be bullshit.
It could be bullshit. It was a rough area.
Yeah.
From an earlier era.
Yeah.
Maybe you could get away with it, but you think they would have found that body.
Yeah, you would think that. Well, like I said, depending on where he put it, though.
You think the parents would have went looking for him.
Although, I think he said at first, I think he said he dumped him in the Pine Barrens, which, that's a big
and how's
wooded
the
area.
How boy get him down there? In his car? That bitch doesn't have a car.
That's what I mean. You're
what's
13.
He gonna do? Throw him in what's he gonna do? Put him in a duffel bag and carry him? I have a hard time seeing a 13-year-old boy pulling that off. To me, I think it'd be more likely that a 13-year-old boy would kill another kid by accident and just leave him right there and run.
That's kind of what I think. I mean, just kind of trying to cast back to myself when I was 13 or 14. Not that I would have done something like that.
Probably just have pulled him off the road and fucking covered him up with some branches and run.
Yeah, and just be like, fuck, this has nothing to do with me, bye.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I feel like probably would have
which meant that the body would have been found. It might be a bullshit story.
Maybe. But I'm just saying, this is usually credited as his first murder, that he said that he was a kid.
Now, there's another situation. There's another situation you have to consider. It's a pretty fucking rough area. A lot of times, the reason why bodies are found is because there's a family that's causing the police to look for the body.
To look for the body, right.
Might have been that the kid fucking was an asshole and from a fucking bad family himself, and when the kid didn't show up, the parents were like, oh, fuck it.
Whatever, he ran away.
He probably ran away.
Because that does happen.
Right. And then they don't care that he ran away. Then the couple breaks up. One of them gets killed or dies doing this, and the other one gets it. You know what I mean? So the family
it's possible.
That family might have dissolved. Maybe it had already been dissolved by the time that the kid was killed.
Yeah. And like I said, even if he did take the body, like maybe he killed the kid like in kind of a remote area and then he just like left him in the woods and no one thought to look for him. Yeah. Could be that way too.
The family wasn't asking the cops to look for him.
Right. Because like I said, it's sad, but that does happen.
That happens a lot.
Yeah. I've written about cases like that myself.
I think, the average person would think that, you know what I mean, that you kill somebody, there's immediate search for that person.
Not always.
No.
Not always. Depends who it is. Depends what the circumstances are.
It all depends on who it is and who the family is. Is there a family that's worrying about you because you didn't come back?
Yeah.
And if there isn't a family worrying about you, they ain't gonna look for you.
Well, that's what I mean. And I was just telling you this the other day. It's like when I was researching my books, you would be appalled at how many unidentified bodies there are found. And they're never identified. Like, these are people that have never been reported missing.
Yep.
Because they don't have families, or their families don't give a shit about them, or their families are dead, or they just moved to a different state, or they, or there's any number of reasons.
A lot of times the problem is that the victim was a pain in the ass. The family's glad that person is out of their fucking hair. They don't know that the person is dead, but they also don't care where that person is, as long as they're not fucking taking up space.
Yeah.
In their house. And then that family itself might be, like I said, kind of dissolving.
Yeah.
The husband, the mother and father going different ways, or maybe there was only a single mother and she's kind of elderly. She didn't give a shit. She's only got a few years left to live anyway. That kind of shit. She's on fucking welfare. So, they just said, that girl's gone, fuck her.
Yeah, she's off living her own life somewhere.
She doing all those drugs. I don't want her around here. She needs to shape up, Well, that little does she know that her daughter got killed at a truck stop fucking 10 years ago. She didn't even fucking know.
Yeah. And like I said, they might never identify them. Like, if somebody finds the body and, like, that's...
Right.
Like I said, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of unidentified
There's a lot of
bodies
kids
all the
that
time.
just leave
Yeah,
home.
and a lot of them are kids or teenagers.
Yeah, they just leave home and are never seen again. And the parents don't really give a shit.
Well, and I suspect if they're little kids, I suspect that their parents probably killed them and then dumped them somewhere. And that's the reason why no one's looking for them.
That's another thing, too, yeah.
Because they don't report them because they're the ones that did it.
Yeah, parents kill their kids and sometimes, and they're never reported
Well, I
missing.
mean, look, it happened in this case. Kuklinski's dad
Yep.
killed his older brother. And they just said, he fell down the stairs.
If you're not a really well-known family, you can kill your own children. If nobody complains about it, nobody knows.
That's what
They
I mean.
gotta
It's
find
like
the body.
scary, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
We've seen it right there in the system.
Yeah. So apparently after he killed Charlie Lane, who was like the head of this gang, he decided that he was going to go after the other boys in the gang also. Now, he gets like this, he finds them, he gets like this metal pole, like out of a trash can or whatever, and beat all of them. He didn't kill any of them, but he beat all of them like almost to death. Now, he said that this was like I said, I don't know if this actually happened or not, but he said that this was kind of like a turning point in his life because this was a point where he realized what he said. The quote was, "Oh, it's better to give than receive."
Yeah.
In the sense that
Better to do unto somebody else.
it's better to just like beat the shit out of somebody that rather than let them bully you. And that like it gave him power, like violence gave him power. And that
Goes
was
back
like
to
the
what I
first
said.
time that he realized it.
Goes back to what I said before.
Yeah. Now, at this stage, it's like I said, he became kind of like through his teenage years, he kind of became somebody that was known for having like a hair trigger temper. Pretty much anything you said that pissed him off or made him feel bad or anything like that, he would beat the shit out of you or kill you for it. And he kind of had a little bit of a reputation for doing that. So he started out actually not as a, contract killer, but he started out kind of like as a pool shark.
Yeah.
And when he was doing that, like he also kind of got a reputation of having like a really bad temper and like, don't fuck with him or, he'll kill you and shit like that.
Yeah, this is his first string of fucking homicides that interested me. The ones that are around that damn pool.
Yeah.
Oh. You gonna get into any of those?
Well, not so much because they don't know a lot about that. Like I said, pretty much it's only his word. You know what I mean?
Because from what I remember, the first one he did as what he considered to be an adult kill. So in that pool hall, he got into a fight, and I think he killed one of them with a damn pool cue.
Yeah.
In a fight right there in the pool hall.
He said he did, yeah.
Said he killed the guy. Although he never got arrested or even questioned about that one.
Yeah.
I wonder if that actually happened.
See, like I said, it's hard to say. Because you have to understand not only, one, he probably exaggerated some of the shit, but also, two, the kind of people he was hanging out with were all criminals.
They wouldn't have gone to the police.
So they wouldn't have gone to the police. So
Yeah.
it's like if someone was like in some like criminal hangout bar and somebody beat the shit out of them and they died, nobody's going to report that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Another one I remembered he talked about, it was around that pool hall. Somebody was talking shit. One of these guys, he considered himself to be a real tough guy and was fucking with him and talking all this shit. And Kuklinski was walking out of the pool hall and saw him down in the back alley behind the pool hall taking a piss. And he walked up behind that guy and he had a garrote,
Yeah.
and put it around his fucking neck while the guy was taking a piss and turned around backwards and then leaned
And then,
forward.
I remember him
and
saying that.
hung him over his shoulder.
Over his shoulder, yeah.
And just sit there and let him take a piss off his back of his shoulder while he strangled to death.
Yeah.
And then he stood there for a long time till the guy was dead and just dropped him and then walked off like nothing ever happened. And left him dead in that damn...
I remember
that sounded
him
very plausible.
I remember him saying that. He said that to the psychiatrist in one of the interviews that I was watching the other day. And he said, well, the first thing he said before he described just what you said, he said, I strangled the guy in kind of an original way. He's like, or maybe it's original, I don't really know. And then he said what you just said, like how he did that like over his shoulder. And then he said, and I felt the guy die. Like I felt him go limp. And then the psychiatrist asked, well, how did you feel about that? And he's like, I didn't really feel any way about it.
Yeah.
I just felt him die. That's like all he said. You know what I mean? It's like, I kind of feel like, the psychiatrist was trying to like, kind
Get
of
emotion out
trying
of
to
it.
get a bead on him or trying to get a read on him. So he kept asking him, like, how did you feel about this? How did you feel about that? And it's almost kind of like Kuklinski didn't really, I'm not saying, not that he didn't understand the question, but I think he was kind of getting annoyed that he kept asking him that because he didn't feel anything.
Well, he said he didn't feel anything.
He said he didn't.
I don't believe that was the case. I
Yeah.
believe he felt fucking pleasure, gratification from it.
Now, he did say
He's like,
that...
fuck this dude. And then
He
fucking,
did say
that's what
that
he did.
killing was the... Well,
Yeah.
Now, the psychiatrist did ask him at one point, is like, what brings you pleasure? Now, the only thing he said was sex. He said that was the only thing that, like, got his adrenaline going or anything like that. And they said, does killing people bring you pleasure? And he's like, not really. He said it's more like satisfaction, like he could relax after it happened.
Yeah.
Because, his problem has been eliminated, I
Yeah.
guess, is kind of what he was getting at. So he almost didn't say that it caused him any pleasure, but almost it was like a relief.
That's what I got out of it. I got out of it is that he got the satisfaction from it. That it was another bad guy gone.
Yeah.
Because really, you know what I mean? You can look at Kuklinski as a fucking villain, but he's killing other gangsters and other fucking assholes and shit. From his point of view, he thought he saw himself as the good guy killing evil.
He probably did. Even though he killed, allegedly, he killed random people too. Just
Yeah.
random people in the street.
Right, and I heard them stories, and I think that what that was, it was kind of like experimentation. He's
Yeah,
like-
he did that as well.
he's
like, he
like,
was curious
yeah, I'm
about
gonna
if
see
different
if-
things would work.
Yeah, I'm going to see if it works on this guy and see if I can use that against these other bad guys. Mm-hmm. So he was just kind of dispassionate about it. I don't think he got
Yeah,
anything
that's
out-
a good word. That's exactly what he
It was
was.
just to see if the technique worked. It didn't have anything to do with the victim.
Yeah, it didn't have, like I said, he said at one point that he was curious to see if a crossbow would kill somebody.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, I don't know if this really happened or not, but this is something that he said. He said, I was curious to see if a crossbow would kill somebody and how it would work and everything like that. So I had one, and he's like, so I was in a car and I was pulled over to curb, so I just, like, motioned a random dude over to the car like I was going to ask for directions, and then I just shot him in the head with it.
Yeah, well, it made sense because he didn't want to try it on a dangerous guy who might turn around and fucking shoot him.
Yeah.
Or do it on a job where he might miss the kill and not get paid, that kind of deal. So he tried it on a guinea pig.
Yeah, just on a random person.
Yeah.
And the
Yes, he did.
psychiatrist asked him, he's like, well, did it work? And he's like, oh, yeah. He's like, it went halfway into his head. Just like,
Yeah.
just like that. He said it just like that. Isn't that something?
Right.
So, yeah.
But what was funny is that he's talking about all these people that he killed, and in a lot of cases, the cops didn't know the homicide that he was talking about.
Yeah, there's not a lot of corroboration.
Yeah, but
Like
the
I
thing
said-
is, though, is that records of fucking that area during that time around New York, police work was pretty damn fucking shoddy.
That's why it's kind of ambiguous.
And I think a lot of that did happen.
Oh, yeah, I'm
every-
not denying that he didn't kill a whole
some of
bunch
the
of
homicides,
people. I'm
they
sure
knew-
he did.
Some of the homicides they knew about exactly.
Yeah.
They were like, oh yeah, we know about that one.
So, yeah, I'm not saying, like, a lot of these didn't happen. I do think he exaggerated somewhat, but I'm not saying that I don't think that he did,
Right.
like, 100 people. 'Cause I don't doubt that.
I don't think he knows how many he killed.
I don't think so. Well, he doesn't know. They just
Right.
asked him, and
He
he's
was
like,
just
I don't know,
estimating.
maybe 100, 200. He doesn't really. He
He also
really seem to
had
know.
he also had like a private, or like a secret place. It was like a cave where he would take guys, victims, and fucking have them eaten to death by rats, and he'd film it.
So he said. Although
he
they've
said.
never found the tapes.
They've never did they ever find the cave though?
They have those caves, but the thing about it is that, because that's a pretty popular claim, that he
Yeah.
would kind of tie up guys, or he would like cut them so they would bleed, and then he would put them in these caves in Philadelphia.
And slow motion
that-
camera.
And then
fucking-
the camera, and then like the rats would eat them. But other people because those caves where he said that he left them are like pretty popular, like with tourists and stuff. And they're like, one, we've never found any human remains there. And two, the tapes have never been found. And three, a lot of the people that are, frequent those caves, like, tour guides and stuff like that, they said, there are rats in these caves, but they don't think that they would, that they wouldn't act the way that he
So he was
said that
probably
they
bullshit.
acted.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah, this I'm not saying that it's not true, but a lot of people have thought that this claim was probably.
I wonder if he was bullshitting about the ice cream man.
Well, that was a real guy, and that guy did turn up dead in his fucking truck and everything like that. So all of that did happen.
Happened, evidently, yeah.
So that did happen. Okay. But like I said, it's hard to say because he was a horrible person, and they know for sure that he did several murders.
Right.
But it's ambiguous because it's kind of like, when we were talking about Henry Lee Lucas on when we were talking about the confession killer, like on the matinee show.
Yeah, well, that dude bullshitted a lot, though.
Yeah, but it's like, he did kill people.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
But did he kill 600 people? No, obviously not.
I think he killed 4.
Yeah, I think it was 3.
Yeah.
But, I think he killed his mom and those other 2. But So it's the same situation here. Did this guy kill a lot of people? Yes. Did he kill 300 people? I don't know. Maybe. It's not impossible.
I think he did. He did tell a story that some teenagers in a van tried to run him off the road when he was going through a mountainous road, and then he caught back up to him, drove them off the road, gunned them down, killed them, and they did find those guys.
Yeah, he said. Yeah, I remember him saying about that. He couldn't remember how many of them there were.
I think it was 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, he just said in the thing because the psychiatrist or whoever was interviewing asked him, well, how many were there? He's like, I don't know, a bunch of them.
I think that did get verified that they did find those guys all down fucking off the side of the road in their van down there.
Maybe. Like I said, a lot of the shit that he said, a lot of shit that he said, there's not like corroboration. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I'm not saying that he didn't kill a lot of people because I'm sure he probably did. But some of the stuff might have been like later exaggeration. Like he was trying to sound
like a badass.
You know what I mean? Because he needed like more.
What about his gangster hideout where he would take all the bodies and cut them into pieces and freeze them?
Well, now
that existed, didn't it? That
was they're not sure where he would put the body. They only know of one that he froze because they found it and he didn't do it right. There was, like, a couple of documentaries I saw said that there was this place in New Jersey, and it was called The Store, and it wasn't just him, it was, like, a mob place where you would take the bodies and cut them up, and they would, like, put them, you know what I mean? Yeah. Did that exist? Probably. But, you know what I mean? So they're not really sure. The one body that they found that they know that he froze, they're not sure where he kept that because it was there for 2 years. They said it must have been an industrial freezer or it was in Mister Softee's truck or something, but they're not sure where that was. You know what I mean? Because they don't know. They just found the body when it was dumped.
Okay.
So they don't know where he kept it. They know that he kept it somewhere for a couple of years and it was frozen, but they don't know where.
Okay.
As far as I know, nobody knows where he kept it.
All right, let's go through the timeline again. We're probably losing the audience.
So, apparently, what he started doing in about 1954 is he starts going around New York, just kind of like looking for people to kill for various reasons. And like I said, I think this was kind of like before he even had any contracts. This was kind of, it seems like it was in his experimental phase. Now, I don't think, as far as I know, he never killed any women. And he later said that he would never kill a child and that he's like, I probably never would have killed he's like, I wouldn't have killed a woman.
Right.
But any man, if you told him to kill this dude, that dude, just kill that guy walking down the street, he'd be like, all right. And he would do it. He wasn't bothered about it. So he said during this period, where he wasn't getting paid for it, he was just killing people that, pissed him off, or he was just a small time criminal at this point. Or who stiffed him, out of money or just, did something to annoy him. So he would, either shoot them, he would stab them, bludgeon them. He said that he dumped some in the Hudson River, which I guess a lot of mobsters did that if they ever dredged the fucking Hudson River. I always wonder how many bodies they're going to find. Because remember when we were watching The Irishman the other day, and there was a whole scene where he was just like throwing all the guns. I don't remember if it was the Hudson River, but he was throwing. They showed at the bottom, just like all guns at the bottom, because that's where like all the mobs like throw.
Which I don't know why they did. I don't know why they did that because ballistics aren't what they thought it was.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's very difficult to match a bullet to a gun. Rifling marks are constantly changing on those things every time you fucking fire a bullet down them. That was some fucking legal courtroom hocus pocus to try to get that shit to match up.
Yeah.
There's no reason to destroy a gun after that.
Well, just to be on the safe side, I would guess.
Well, you don't want to be caught in possession of the damn thing.
Yeah.
But you would think that you could have a place to hide and let it cool off. It's the funniest fucking thing. I saw a damn British program where it was all fucking around like a group of 2 guns that went out. They were tracking the activity, criminal activity of 2, I think it was 2, 1 or 2 firearms that were in England, and how many people it got shot in England with those 2 guns.
With just those 2 guns.
Just those 2 guns, and they were just like
because they were just getting passed from hand to hand.
Yeah, they were just huge forensic fucking investigation of how many people were killed by these 2 guns, and us as Americans just laughing. We got millions of those fucking things over here, and the British are fucking worried about 2 guns.
Yeah, but if they killed a lot of people, I mean.
Yeah, well, it's because they don't have any guns.
Yeah, well,
so that way, those few guns are being filtered only through the hands of criminals.
Yeah. You
know, fucking over here we have, I think, we have more than 2 million just AK-47s alone.
Yeah.
Most of them, not, you know, that's like the least likely type of firearm to be used in a crime. Most common firearms to be used in a crime are like little 25s and 22s and 380s. Little tiny subcompacts.
Well, easier to conceal.
Something you can conceal and hide. Those rifles and those assault rifles, it's just fucking very rare that anybody uses anything like that.
Well, yeah, because you can't like fucking walk down the street with that shit. Everybody would see you coming.
Yeah, they see you coming with it. You can't fucking hide it under anything.
Right.
It's just, and they say, well, what about those school shootings? Yeah, those school shootings, mostly done with 9mm pistols. If you actually go through there and see how many shootings happen in schools, 9mm pistols. And it's only like 1 or 2 people. You know what I mean? Because any asshole kid that takes a gun to school shoots some kids is because they're fucking bullying him and he's a fucking dork. And he shoots somebody fucking that was fucking with him.
Well, like I said,
you never really hear about it because it's maybe only 1 or 2 people killed.
Well, that's kind of what happened in Kuklinski's case. I mean, when he was a little kid, apparently he got bullied a lot.
Yeah.
And he didn't have that great of a home life, as I'm sure a lot of people in that neighborhood did not.
Yeah. Don't bully people.
Yeah.
That's the key.
I mean, you never know. Well,
Well,
see, now that's kind of like the whole, and if everybody would just do this, the world would be a much better place.
Yeah, just don't fuck with people.
Well, just leave people the fuck alone,
Leave people the fuck alone, and you won't get shot.
Leave people the fuck alone. I don't care what they look like. I don't care. Just fucking leave them alone. Just let them do their shit, man. Yeah. Leave them alone. It's nothing to do with you. Yeah. It's nothing to do with you. No. Just let them fucking live their life the way they want to fucking live it, and just keep your fucking shit out of it. Just keep out of it.
Right.
Easy. All right. So apparently, according to most sources I read, Kuklinski is going around various parts of Manhattan experimenting, like figuring out just killing random people and whatnot. But he was always using different methods so that, from several things that I read, apparently the cops did not know that this was all one person. So they thought it was the famous, like I think he mentioned this a few episodes ago, bum on bum violence. They thought it was homeless people killing each other. Yeah. Because it was all different. Like some of the people were bludgeoned, some were shot, some were stabbed. You know, there were all these different like methods of murder. So they didn't like put them all together as being like one guy.
Well, he knew the basics of police investigation. Right. He knew about patterns. He just knew that you didn't want to leave a pattern.
Yeah.
Make it different each time and they would.
Yeah, and he basically said that outright.
Right.
Now, he, in a later interview when they were kind of asking him about, well, what did you get out of this? Like, you know, what did you get out of killing people? He didn't really, he said the killing was kind of like, he said the killing for me was secondary. That was a quote. He enjoyed the hunt. He enjoyed the challenge, like how he was going to kill this person and not get caught. He's like, for him, the killing was just kind of like, that was like the end of it, routine. But it's like he kind of got more of a charge out of figuring everything out beforehand, like how he was going to do it.
He was mission oriented.
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was and like, according to one writer that actually wrote a biography of him later on, he thought that maybe Kuklinski was bipolar, but he had never like taken any medication, obviously, or he'd never been to a psychiatrist or anything like that, because he said that, the writer said, he's like, because he had interviewed him at length, and he's like, admitting that something was wrong with him was not something he would ever do. You know what I mean? Yeah. So he would never like
from his point of view, it's
get
normal.
Help or anything like that.
From his point of view, it was normal.
Yeah.
I mean, he knew he was unusual.
He did know because, like,
he knew he was special. But
like
he
I
didn't think
said,
it was
later
wrong.
on when the psychiatrist interviewed him when he was in prison, like shortly, probably a couple of years before he died, he did seem to realize that he was unusual.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he was interested, like, he was happy that the psychiatrist came because apparently, I mean, he had talked to some other psychiatrists by this time, but he hadn't talked to them to such an extent. Like, he was very curious about what the psychiatrist would say about him. Right. And even when, I thought this was very interesting, the psychiatrist at one point, whose name is Park Dietz, by the way, he's on a lot of like true crime shows. If you've seen like a bunch of true crime shows, you will have seen him before. He's very familiar. So he asked, Kuklinski at one point, he's like, I'm going to turn the tables and I'm going to ask you, like, if you have any questions for me, like, do you want to ask anything about me? So Kuklinski pauses for a long time, but then, interestingly, instead of asking about the psychiatrist, he asks, what does the psychiatrist think about him? Which I thought was very interesting. Like, that was kind of like all he could think of was himself.
Right.
So it's like he wasn't curious about the psychiatrist. He wasn't curious about... Because I thought he was going to ask something like, why'd you want to become a psychiatrist? Or why did you do this? Or something like that. But he didn't. He just asked the psychiatrist, what do you think about me?
Right.
That's what he asked.
Why would you be curious about a psychiatrist?
I'd be curious.
From his point of view, that's just a mundane, regular person.
Yeah.
Kuklinski sees himself as, no, I'm the fucking real deal. I'm doing shit you guys make movies about. I'm a celebrity.
Yeah, he definitely did seem... He wasn't as self-aggrandizing, not as obviously self-aggrandizing as some other serial killers.
No. He was. He had a more realistic view of himself.
But he did have... he had a little bit of that. He did have a little bit of pumping himself up to kind of, like, look more badass.
He knew he was a badass, though.
Yeah.
He knew he was badass.
But in his case, it wasn't bullshit. I mean, he did do a lot of that shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He just maybe kind of, like, put a little bit of icing on it, I think. So by about the mid-1960s, and they showed this in the Iceman movie, he starts working at this film lab in Manhattan. Now, this film lab, apparently they processed copies of like kind of a lot of major films, like Disney movies and all that other kind of stuff. So he started making like bootleg copies of them, not only for his own family, but also to kind of, sell to other people, on the black market. Also discovered there was like a really big black market in bootleg porno. So he started making that too. And that was kind of like a big source of income, like in the beginning of his criminal career, as he was making these like knockoff copies when he was in the lab and he was like selling them on the black market, right? Now,
so he was copying the porn and selling copies of porn.
Yes.
So he wasn't producing his own.
No.
Copying other people's.
Yeah, he was like I said, he worked in a film lab. He was getting like big budget, like Hollywood movies, like Disney movies, like cartoons and shit like that too. He made bootlegs of that too, but and made some money off that. But he made more money off porn,
right?
Like just kind of selling it on the black market. Now it was in this particular film lab and through his bootlegging work and whatnot that he kind of started to get into a little bit of like minor gang activity. He kind of got into, pornography trafficking, drug trafficking. He got like a couple of guys and he started like kind of a burglary ring. He mostly stealing cars, Corvettes he specialized in. Apparently the only crime that he was ever arrested for, like before he later got arrested for murders, was passing a bad check. That's it. And they let him off after he said that he would pay the amount. Right. You know what I mean? He said he'd pay it, and then they let him go. So that was the only fucking crime that he was ever fucking, even though he was doing all this shit. Okay, so apparently, and like I said, there is some, there's a little bit of controversy about this, but apparently he met this guy named Roy DeMeo, who would later kind of be a higher up in the Gambino crime family. He apparently met this guy. He had borrowed money from a loan shark. This loan shark was kind of like a mob-connected guy. Kuklinski apparently missed a payment. Roy DeMeo and two other guys came and beat the shit out of him to get the money. because he hadn't paid. And according to Kuklinski's story, the guys were so impressed that he just kind of like took the beating, and he didn't cry or anything. You know, he didn't like beg for anything. He just kind of like took it like a man, and that kind of impressed them. So apparently Roy DeMeo was so impressed by that he later started throwing some jobs to Kuklinski. You know, if somebody needed beating up because they hadn't paid, or if somebody needed to be whacked or something like that. So he starts like kind of giving him these little jobs. Now, so the story goes, his kind of like, you know, his whole start on this mob thing was DeMeo took him out in a car and said, so they just park on this random city street. DeMeo says, okay, well, if I just told you to kill a guy and you didn't know who it was or anything like that, would you do it? And Kuklinski said, yeah, I could probably do that. So they go out there and he's like, okay, well, see that guy walking a dog over there? Go kill that guy. So Kuklinski apparently just gets out of the car, and he said in the interview, he said, yeah, I just walked past this guy. It was just a dude walking his dog like a normal dude. And he just kind of walked past him like that, and then he just shot him in the head. Then he got back in the car, and they left.
That was his audition to see if he could just do coke.
That's apparently what that was. So evidently after that happened, and like I said, there is some controversy about this, but evidently after that happened, Roy DeMeo said, okay, well, you're going to be the go-to guy for like any hits we have to do, because apparently you don't give a shit and you'll just do whatever you're told, and you don't like... Now,
that homicide, is that verified by the police?
See, now this is the problem, because, okay, some people that had written, like, a couple of guys that wrote a book about the Roy DeMeo crew later on. There was a book written about them. It was called Murder Machine. In that book, Kuklinski is not mentioned. Okay? Now, Albert DeMeo, who was Roy DeMeo's son, also wrote a book about his dad called For the Sins of My Father. That book also does not mention Kuklinski. So I don't know. I'm not saying the two guys didn't know each other and that this shit didn't happen, but I'm just saying that if they did, apparently the Gambino crime family are not saying that they know him or he was very minor, or because like I said, Kuklinski wasn't in the mob. He wasn't like in any of the crime families.
Yeah.
He was a contract killer who, you know, if you needed somebody whacked and you gave him the money, like he would do it. Like he wasn't in any of the crews or anything like that.
Although, you know, from my understanding, most of those families did that shit with their own people that they trusted. They didn't really like... Chances are they wouldn't go outside their own family to get that shit done. But maybe.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, maybe. I'm not saying either way. I don't know. I wasn't there. Now...
so there's a chance that he bullshitted about that.
Maybe. I'm just saying. Okay. Now, later on, too, Kuklinski said that he killed DeMeo. Now, DeMeo was murdered. He was found in the trunk of his car in 1983. However, most people in the know, like people that, you know, were undercover agents or other people in the crime family that later flipped and stuff like that, said that DeMeo was probably killed by members of his own crew and not by Kuklinski, although Kuklinski later did claim to have killed him.
But he could have read about that and then said that he did it.
Perhaps.
So it could be that Kuklinski maybe wanted to write himself into mob history.
That's kind of what I'm suspecting. Like I said, I'm not saying that he didn't kill a bunch of people. I mean, he did get convicted of 6 people, and that's a fucking enough. Yeah. He probably killed considerably more than that. But I don't know if he was as big a player in mob circles as
he wanted to be.
As maybe he wanted to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Although he did kill people. And, you know, and he did kill people for various, like, interests. So, yeah, this is where we're going to talk about... Let's talk about Mister Softee.
Yeah, okay.
So...
Mr. Softee.
Now, in the early 19...
Sounds like somebody with erectile dysfunction. Mr. Softee.
Mr. Softee or Mr. Limpy.
Yeah.
So, BTK's little Santa hat fell off.
Well, you got to understand something, you know.
His little hat keeps falling.
Yeah.
His little hat keeps falling off. What his hat's called. All right.
The old BTK. Okay.
It's like that's good. That'll stay. Right. Now, okay, so early 1980s, Robert Kuklinski meets this guy named Robert Pronge. He's called Mister Softee because he drove a Mister Softee ice cream truck. Now, apparently it was a real functioning ice cream truck. He would, like, drive around the neighborhoods and, like, sell kids. So apparently that was, like, his cover, I guess, because no one thought that an ice cream truck driver was, like, a fucking contract killer. That's kind of what he was.
Yeah, hitman. Although, you know what I mean? This story has always been kind of fantastical to me.
A lot of this stuff is fits.
Okay.
I'm not saying it didn't happen, because crazy shit happens all the time.
I just have a hard time accepting it, but he said it did happen, and this dude did turn up dead, so maybe
that's true.
Maybe it's true.
And they do think, in this case, Kuklinski probably did kill this guy.
Okay.
So, you know what I mean? Like I said, with DeMeo, they're not sure. I mean, that guy turned up dead too, but from what they know, like the scuttlebutt on the street was that probably he got whacked by people in his own crew.
Okay.
This guy, he didn't get convicted of it or anything, but they're pretty sure that probably he killed this guy. Now, I don't know if this is true, but Mister Softee said that he was a special forces veteran and that he was a munitions or an explosives expert or something like that. I don't know if that's true or not. He was also like I said, he was kind of almost like, he comes across as like a mad scientist kind of guy. Like he was really into like experimenting with like different ways to kill people, and he was really, really fascinated with poisons. Now, apparently it was his obsession with poisons and his obsession with cyanide that got Kuklinski into poisons and cyanide as a way of killing some of his victims. Because apparently later on in his criminal career, Kuklinski said that his favorite method of murder was cyanide because it was, it wasn't easy to get, obviously, but it was like, not very messy. You had plausible deniability. It was like, and cyanide, for pro tip for any of you like serial killers out there, I guess. It's funny to me because I see this on the fucking documentaries and they're saying all this stuff about cyanide, like, oh, it's all you have to do is like spray it up someone's nose or like put it on their skin. It only takes like a tiny, tiny bit. I saw one thing that said like a third of an aspirin tablet is enough to kill a person. Size, you know what I mean? Yeah. That amount. And it's like, if it'll go through your skin, you can like put up your nose or whatever. And it only stays in your body after you die for about an hour. So unless they're looking for it, there are a couple of telltale signs, like in the lividity, like of your skin after you die. But if they're not looking for it, then probably they will not find out that you were poisoned. So I think that's why Kuklinski kind of got into it, because it's easy to administer. And a lot of times the death of the person is attributed to natural causes rather than poisoning, because if you don't know to look for it, then they don't look for it. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Now, apparently, so like I said, one of his favorite things to do was like put cyanide like in one of those nasal spray bottles. And then like he'd either force it up someone's nose or just like squirt it in their face or something like that. And then it would kill them. You know what I mean? So he says that him and Mister Softee did a whole bunch of murders together, and that it was Mister Softee's idea to do the whole body freezing thing. Now, he says that he did it a bunch of times. Records show that they know of that he only did it to one person, and they know what they did to this guy because they did find this guy, and this was the dude. His name was Louis Masgay. What they ended up doing was that they killed him, and then they put him in a freezer. Some stories say that they put him in the freezer in the Mister Softee ice cream truck, and he was in there for like 2 years. So he was like selling popsicles and shit to like little kids, like while there was a fucking body in there. And I think that was in the movie too, yeah. Just because he's more horrible. It's like, give me that fudgesicle that was like right next to that dude's fucking corpse. Or they might have kept him in an industrial freezer somewhere. Anything like that.
I remembered it was a freezer that was inside of some kind of a bar that they knew of.
It might have been, because like I said, there was supposedly a place that was like behind like a bar or some other restaurant or something. And like all the mobsters hung out there, and that's where they processed the bodies of the people.
And evidently they had like a couple of them there at any one time.
Yeah.
And they'd let them age up in there for a while, and then let them thaw, and then drop them off somewhere. And if the authorities found the body, they would let the authorities find the body, actually.
Well, yeah, because...
And then the authorities couldn't figure out what the time of death
was if they were frozen. If you did it right.
Yeah, and if they don't know the time of death or the location, then that really
they can't pin it on
fucks
you.
up the investigation.
Yeah, because then, like, you don't need an alibi or anything like that, because they don't, like, fucking know when you died. You know, and that's kind of an important thing to know in a murder investigation. So, apparently, Kuklinski and Mister Softee had an argument. According to Kuklinski, it was when Mister Softee, I keep calling him that, that's just better than his real name. Apparently, he wanted to contract Kuklinski to murder his son and his ex-wife. And Kuklinski would not do that because, like I said, he didn't want to kill women or children. So that was kind of a point of contention between them. Also, allegedly... Mister Softee he was trying to eliminate this one family. And in order to do that, he had an idea that he was going to poison an entire reservoir with ricin. Yeah. And Kuklinski didn't much like that idea. So he told Mister Softee as much. Hey, I don't like that idea. That's fucked up. Which is something coming from a contract killer.
Well, he wasn't indiscriminate.
Right. Like, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, he didn't think that was too cool, that you were just going to kill, like, all these random fucking people just to get this one family that you don't like. And also, like I said, he wouldn't kill women and children. He was kind of, like, particular about that. So apparently they had an argument about that. During this argument, Mister Softee apparently threatened Kuklinski's family, which was a big fucking no-no. Yeah. If you ever... said that you were going to do anything to his wife or children.
Oh, you were gone.
You were dead. Because he really, really felt very strongly about that.
He didn't even want you to know where he lived or where his family... If you knew where his family lived, he'd kill you.
He'd kill you.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, he was very, very, very careful about that. Like I said, I think one guy, and this is another story, it's like one guy who either owed him money or Kuklinski owed him money, I can't remember. But he's like, that guy found out where he lived and like came to one of his barbecues one week and he later whacked that guy. Yeah. Just because he knew where he lived.
Right. It was
no one else knew.
Well, it was a lapse of security.
Yeah.
He didn't want anybody to know where he lived.
Yeah.
Or where his family was. Well, and it made sense.
Well, yeah, because look at the kind of people that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
You're dealing with these fuckers, and if they know where your family lives, they got leverage on you.
Yep.
So you kill anyone.
So he wasn't dumb.
No.
Not dumb.
No.
So like I said, and really, that's really stupid. It was really stupid for anybody to like threaten his family because they knew that was like a big trigger for him. So Mister Softee says, yeah, well, fuck you. I'm going to do this, that to your wife and children. So in August of 1984, Mister Softee was found dead in his ice cream truck, 2 bullet wounds in his chest.
Yeah.
Now, at the time of his death, like I said, they're not sure if Kuklinski did it or not. It seems likely. However, at the time of his death, he was actually right around that time. He was supposed to appear in court. There were like some aggravated assault charges, like against his ex-wife and his son. I guess he had beaten them up. And so he was supposed to appear in court on those charges, and then he turned up dead.
Yeah.
So it's possible that his ex-wife might have had him bumped off. I don't know.
Now, Kuklinski said that he learned a lot from Mister Softee.
He did, yeah.
He said he learned a lot about poisons and explosives and weird, crazy-ass ways. He said crazy-ass ways.
Yeah. Oh, he said that guy was crazy.
Yeah, he said that dude was fucking crazy. And he said the more he learned, according to fucking Kuklinski, he said the more he learned about that guy and the more he learned from him, he realized that he couldn't let that guy just walk around.
Yeah.
And so he killed him. Which, you know what? If it really went down that way, then maybe Kuklinski did fucking society a favor.
Maybe.
And he got referred to that guy through some other gangsters.
Yeah.
And he didn't find him by chance. Some other gangsters that he dealt with said that, hey, you need to meet Mr. Frosty. He'll tell you all about poisons.
Yeah.
And that's how he met him, from what I remember.
Yeah. He did definitely say in those interviews. Like, I don't think he confessed to killing him until later on, like in his 2004 interview, which was like his last one. But
that would make a hell of a movie.
They did put all that Mister Softee thing in the movie.
Yeah, I gotta see.
Although, like I said, they called him Mr. Freezy in the movie, but he's called Mister Softee in real life.
I gotta see that movie.
It's good. I've seen it a couple of times.
Yeah.
Michael Shannon's good at everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, he plays Kuklinski in that. And they like, remember? I thought you saw it with me. Winona Ryder was in it playing his wife. You don't remember that?
No.
I've seen it 2 or 3 times. It's good. So let's talk about some of the, like, a few of the other murders that he was actually convicted of that they know he probably committed. So this is February of 1980. So Kuklinski has this business associate whose name was George Maliband. And they were on some kind of errand. They were driving to New Jersey. And according to Kuklinski, just like Mister Softee had done, George Maliband threatened Kuklinski's family after they had an argument. Now, at this point, so apparently, I don't know what the errand was that they were running or whatever. They're just they're in this van. So they have a fight. He threatens Kuklinski's family, and Kuklinski stops the van, and apparently they have a fight. It's like, oh, you're not going to kill me. You're not going to do this and that and the other thing. Yeah, Kuklinski pulls out a .38 and shot him right in the chest 5 times.
Yeah.
Just fucking killed him. And he just said later on, he said, oh, it was just business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just got tired of having him around. I think what happened was, from what he said, George Maliband owed him money. And he said that he didn't have it. And then so they got in this argument about it, and then he ended up threatening his family and stuff. And then he said, after he killed him, he apparently found $27,000 in the motherfucker's pocket.
Yeah.
Interestingly, he only took as much as he was owed and left the rest there.
Yeah, we were the thief, you know. He was the thief.
Now, this guy, his body was actually found. They found him near a chemical plant in Jersey City. He had been stuffed into a 55-gallon barrel, which was something that Kuklinski liked to do.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, and he said because George Maliband was apparently a big dude. He was almost as big as Kuklinski himself was. And Kuklinski, like I said, was 6'5", almost 300 pounds. So he said that he's like, I'm trying to stuff George he called him Georgie Boy. He's like, I'm trying to stuff him into the barrel, and he was big and he wouldn't fit. So he had to cut the tendons of his legs and kind of break him and stuff him in there like that. Yeah. And so and it, like I said, when he's saying it on the interview, it's just so matter of fact about it. He's like, oh yeah, Georgie boy.
We had to fit him in there.
He's like, yeah, he wouldn't fit in the barrel.
No, this is the one that he just left out on the street near the.
No, this is a different one. They found this one actually down. He'd rolled him down an embankment or something.
So they found that body.
They did find this body. Okay, yeah. The guy that he put by the hotel or whatever, they never did find that guy.
Yeah, he killed one dude, put him in a barrel.
Well, that's
You gonna talk about that?
I am gonna talk about that. Yeah. That's the next one I'm gonna talk about actually.
All right.
So yeah, now the George Maliband, as it happened, they did find this body. This was actually the first murder that was conclusively linked to him because he had told someone that he was going to meet Kuklinski about some money that was owed. You know what I mean? So the police knew that Kuklinski was the last person that had seen him alive. They knew that he was going to meet him that day and then he disappeared. So when they found him dead, that was one of the suspicions that came up. So the guy that you're talking about with the barrel, this was a guy named Paul Hoffman. Now, he was a pharmacist. He was 51 years old. Kuklinski met him in 1982. Now, this pharmacist, apparently he hung out at this place, like I said, the place where the mob hung out, this kind of, this was behind a bar or a store or whatever, where they used to cut up bodies or engage in criminal activities or whatever they were doing back there. So he used to hang out back there. Now, what he wanted to do was he wanted to buy a bunch of Tagamet, which was an ulcer medication. He wanted to buy a bunch of it on the black market at a really cheap price and then sell it at a markup and then make a whole bunch of money. Now, Kuklinski, this was something that he did quite often. He would tell people that I can get you that. I can get you videotapes. I can get you drugs. I can get you whatever. But then he wouldn't get it. He would just take the money and then he would just kill you. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that was something that he did quite a lot. And that was something that he did in this situation. Because he told Paul Hoffman, yeah, I can get all that Tagamet for you. And, he agreed to set up a meeting or whatever. So, April of 1982, Paul Hoffman comes to meet Kuklinski at this warehouse that Kuklinski had leased. Hoffman brings $25,000 in cash, like to buy the Tagamet, or so he thinks, that Kuklinski has. So Hoffman gives Kuklinski the money. Kuklinski says, guess what? I don't have any of that. It was all bullshit. Yeah. Then he said, and he said this in the interview too, he puts the gun under Paul Hoffman's chin and shot it, but the gun jammed. Like it went in, but it didn't like go all the way in. So it didn't kill him right away. So he keeps like trying to shoot him again, gun jammed again. So then he just like beat him to death with a tire iron because he was like sick of the gun, I guess, because it wasn't working.
I had to see what happened. That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, that's what he said.
Okay.
He said that the gun wasn't really, and it just like wounded him. And then like he kind of went unconscious, but then he just like beat him to death with a tire iron. So after that, he puts Hoffman's body in another 50-gallon drum. He filled the drum with instant cement. And he left it on the sidewalk outside a motel, which was next to like this diner called Harry's Corner, which was in South Hackensack, New Jersey. Now, what Kuklinski would do, he just left it on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And what he would do is he would just go, like, I don't know if it was every day or every few days. He would go to
it a lot.
Well, he would go to this diner and he would like eat.
Yeah.
And because he wanted to listen to like people talking and see if anybody said anything about the barrel or if anybody mentioned it.
And it had a hole in the top of it. He said it had a hole in the top of it.
Yeah. I mean, it was full of instant cement, so maybe that was like tamping down the smell because you'd think it would like stink really bad.
I think he said it did stink.
That's what I thought he said too. It's like you'd think somebody would have noticed.
So you could kind of smell it. Yeah.
Yeah. But he said that for as long as he went there, like he would go there and eat like every day or every few days. And he's like, he would just listen to like the other people talking, but nobody ever mentioned it. And the barrel was always there. Yeah. And he thought that was really interesting. He said, but then he did that for like a really long time. He didn't really say how long it was. He just said it was a long time.
I was under the impression that it was like a year.
It might have been, but he just said it was a long time. He didn't really remember how long it was. Yeah. And then one day he showed up there and the barrel was gone and no one said anything about it.
He didn't know what happened to the
barrel.
So
he never knew what happened to it. And so he just assumed maybe it got taken to like a landfill or something like that. They never did find that dude's body. They never did find that barrel. So nobody knows where that shit went.
Yeah.
They know that dude's dead though. I mean, he disappeared.
Yeah.
But they never did find the body.
Goes to show you, back in those days, and that might even apply today, about how you could kill somebody, put them in a barrel, and leave that barrel out in public, and then somebody else dispose of that body for you.
Yeah. In some ways, it might be better to do that because it doesn't seem suspicious.
It doesn't seem suspicious, and
you're hiding in plain sight.
And your fingerprints aren't on that shit. Somebody else took it away.
Yeah. Well, remember the one we were talking about before where like people were killing people and just putting them out in the garbage?
Yeah, and nobody noticed.
On the side of the... And if nobody notices and they just like take it away in the fucking...
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays they can probably track it, maybe... But I don't know. Once it gets taken to the landfill, they don't know where the fuck that came
I bet
from.
you it doesn't matter.
As long as you didn't get your fucking DNA all over it.
We have to understand it's meat.
Yeah.
All kinds of meat goes to the landfill.
Right.
Once it's at the landfill, all kinds of animals are tearing it apart and eating it. And the guys that are dumping at the landfill are used to seeing fucking animals and bullshit and birds.
Yeah.
Tearing shit up at the landfill.
Well, yeah, because I mean, look at like we throw away like chicken fat and chicken skin and, you know. Shit like
the critical phase would be sitting there waiting for him to come pick it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That would be pretty nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you got busted then, you'd be in big trouble. Because they'd be sitting right in front of your house.
Right in front of your fucking house.
And they'd be like, well, obviously it was you.
Yeah.
But once they took it away, you'd be like, whew.
Yeah. That's some weird shit, man. I don't know how to fucking sleep at night.
I don't know either, like I said.
Well, they're dumb. I guess a lot of them are just dumb. I'm going to put it out in the garbage.
Wouldn't you be like thinking that you were just going to get caught? Like every minute of every day, you would be worried you were going to get caught.
Yeah, but we talked about that fucking on other shows.
Yeah.
A lot of these dudes that were killing people in their own houses, it's that same theme over and over again. They just put it out in the garbage.
Yeah.
In front of their own fucking house.
Yeah.
I think out of stupidity. But
maybe, or convenience.
How stupid could you be? I mean, it worked.
What about the dude that like would cut the dudes up and flush them down his fucking toilet?
Yeah, but
and they caught him because he got caught because it backed up.
Yeah, yeah, that's not the good idea.
He didn't cut him up small enough. Clearly,
it would have been better to just put him out in the fucking garbage.
Yeah, well, he didn't think it. I mean, it's like a lot less trouble.
And you might have 150 pound, 200 pounds worth of man out there in the garbage. It might be good to spread it out over a couple of pickups.
See, I always thought this is so messed up that we're talking about this.
Yeah,
I always thought in a way, it would almost be better to just like cut them up and then like throw pieces in like different dumpsters like around town. Maybe, although you might get seen. Maybe that would be more conspicuous.
Speculate and help these murderers out.
No,
here
I'm a true crime writer, so I'm always kind of like wondering, like. This is gonna sound messed up, but it's always kind of like I'm always wondering how could you have done that differently and not gotten caught. You know what I mean?
Probably the best thing to do is just throw them on the side of the road and let somebody find them.
Well, that's clearly the best way because
that's what they mostly do.
Because that's what they mostly do, and those people never get caught.
Yeah.
Well, one, like, and we've said this before, if you want to be a serial killer, which please don't do that, but if you want to be a serial killer and not just, one, kill people you don't fucking know, just kill random people, and two, just leave them on the side of the road somewhere. They will never, and nowhere around, like, be a truck driver, pretty much, and just like, kind of like leave them.
Even if they find them, they can't nail it.
They can't, they can't, pin them to you, especially if you're not from that state.
Right, yeah.
Even nowadays. I mean, it's a lot harder nowadays, but you know what I mean. I'm just saying, please nobody be a serial killer. I'm just saying. So, apparently... So, early 1980s, so, as I said, Kuklinski had his little gang of, that were stealing cars and whatnot. But they're, the cops are kind of starting to, like, close in on him a little bit. So, a member of the gang named Percy House was arrested in December of 1982. Now, he said that he would testify against Kuklinski, who was the head of the gang. So, he was put in protective custody by the police. Now, there were also warrants issued for 2 more members of the gang, who were named Gary Smith and Daniel Deppner. Now, Kuklinski told them, he's like, okay, well, I need you guys to, like, really, like, fucking keep it on the down low for a little while and, like, not get, because the heat's coming down on them, right? So he rents them a hotel room at a hotel called the York Motel in North Bergen, New Jersey. Now... So they're staying at this hotel room. However, Kuklinski is not really having a lot of control over them because they're like wandering off to like visit their family and shit. Like he's like, look, I told you to like stay there and not go out and not do that. And then he also started to become worried that one of them, Gary Smith, was going to flip and was going to become an informant and like knew a lot of shit about him and was going to like testify against him. So he starts thinking, I'm going to have to kill that guy. So he tells Daniel Deppner, the other guy, he's like, all right, well, we're going to kill Gary. So he said, well, we had been bringing, I had been bringing them food to this hotel room. So it wasn't weird for me to like bring, a bag of burgers, for example. Except this time, the bag of burgers that he brought had cyanide on the one that they were giving to Gary. Now, at this point, Daniel Deppner knew about it. He knew that they were killing Gary. So one of the hamburgers, like Gary's hamburger, had cyanide in it. So he gives, and he tells this story like so, it's fucked up because he's like amused almost. He's like, so I bring the hamburger and he's like, Gary's eating it. And usually cyanide will like it kills you right away. Like you start like choking and then like it only takes a couple minutes to kill you. And he's like, I was really surprised because he's eating this burger and he wasn't dying. And he's like, well, did I put the cyanide in the right one or was it not good cyanide or what the fuck is going on? Because it's like usually it would be fast acting, it work right away. So he's like watching the guy going, I wonder what's going on. So then he says, I guess he gets like super impatient and he's like, all right, fuck it. And then he tells Daniel, he's like, why don't you just strangle him, like strangle him with a lamp cord. So they did that because the cyanide was taking too long. And then it's not funny, but it's like it's fucking fucked up. So they strangled him. And then they put him in this motel room. They put the body in between the mattress and the box spring. You know those urban legends about you stay in a motel room and there's like a fucking body under there and nobody knows about it? It's real. It happened in this case because they put Gary Smith, his body, in the fucking between the mattress and the box spring. 5 people stayed in that room
without knowing
and didn't know the body was there.
Damn.
They said that. A couple of them complained about the smell.
Yeah.
But I guess it wasn't bad, which I can't imagine. Like a man's body.
How could you put a man between the box spring and the mattress and not feel it?
I don't know.
It must have been a badass box spring.
Yeah, or
Must have
like
been
they kind of
crushed.
pushed him down, or they hollowed it out. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But they put him in. Like I said, there's fucking urban legends about this. But the reason there's an urban legend about it is because it really happened.
Well, there was that other murder where that dead girl was underneath the damn bed for fucking several
That was in
weeks.
Miami, wasn't it?
Yeah, several
I think that
weeks.
was in Miami.
People kind of said, that room kind of smells underneath. She was dead underneath there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's like nobody, even if your room stinks, it's like hardly anybody would think to look between the mattress and the box spring.
Well, another thing is that a fucking human body is massive, and when that shit starts to decompose, it's overwhelming.
That's what I mean. It's like, so
it must have been pretty cool in there.
Maybe.
To where it wasn't really rotten that bad.
Yeah, because if it had been, I mean, it might not have been.
Summer in the Florida? Oh, shit, you wouldn't be able to fucking stand it.
Yeah, like an hour later.
You'd open up you'd open
and
up
it would knock you down.
You'd open up the door to the fucking room, and it would just come out of there, wafting out of there like fucking... You know what I mean? Fucking
you wouldn't be able to breathe.
Fumes. You wouldn't be able to breathe.
So the fact that I'm not sure how long the gap of time was, they said it was like 5 different, like it wasn't 5 people, but it was like 5 different like turnovers.
It must have been very cool.
Maybe.
I mean, if we're talking about 60, 50, 60, 70 degrees.
I mean, this was early. This was like early, I guess it was January, February.
So it must have been pretty cool.
1983. So it was in New Jersey.
Yeah, cool.
So maybe it was pretty cold.
Pretty cold. They didn't see it.
But it was like the fifth like family that stayed in this room. Finally, the smell was so bad that they couldn't take it, so they complained. And when they came in, like pulled the bed, and then they found the body.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, the pathologist that worked on the case, he said that he's like they were kind of getting sloppy at this point because he's like, one, if they had just given him the cyanide and let him die from the cyanide and left him on the bed. Then probably his death would not have been ruled a homicide. They would have just thought it was a drug overdose or whatever. But because they not only strangled him, but also hid the body, then they knew it was a murder.
Right.
So he's like, that was a little dumb.
Dumbasses.
Yeah. So now the next person to get killed was his other associate who had conspired with him to kill Gary Smith and leave him in this hotel room. This was Daniel Deppner. Now, this guy probably thought, hey, me and Kuklinski, we got together and killed this other guy, without thinking that Kuklinski's like, no, I'm going to kill this guy, because that's what he's going to do. So after they kill Smith and left him in the hotel room, he moves Daniel to like this apartment. Now the apartment was actually owned by this guy named Rich Patterson, who was at that point engaged to marry Kuklinski's daughter, Merrick. Okay. Now Patterson wasn't there at the time. But I guess that Kuklinski had the keys or whatever to the apartment. So apparently, they don't know for sure, but apparently he killed Daniel in this apartment because they did later find blood stains. I believe he had cleaned them up, but they found it with luminol or whatever. So he killed the guy in there. And then later, when Rich Patterson got back, he said... And I can't believe this. I'm just, I'm not victim blaming. I'm just saying I can't believe this guy believed this story. But he's like, oh, this guy must have been staying here and somebody broke in and killed him.
Damn.
We should probably dump this body somewhere just to not get the police involved.
Damn.
This is the guy that's going to marry his daughter.
Right, yeah.
And the guy's like, okay, I'll help you get rid of this body. So they fucking dump it in this place that's like, it's only a few miles from, I guess it was like a cabin or somewhere where Kuklinski and his family used to go like on vacation, like horseback riding or whatever. So they dumped him like out in the woods in West Milford, New Jersey somewhere. Now, a bicyclist actually found the corpse. They noticed like this big turkey vulture like eating something, and he noticed it, so he kind of went over there and then saw the body. So the interesting thing about the body was that the cause of death was strangling. However, they said it's very unusual for a full-grown, healthy adult male to be strangled to death because that's hard to do.
Right.
But they did notice these pink spots on his skin, which is indicative of cyanide poisoning if you are looking for it. So they assumed that he must have been incapacitated by cyanide poisoning and then later strangled and then dumped. Yeah. That's probably what happened. So this was... and he had no defensive wounds. So probably the poison took effect. He just went unconscious. Kuklinski probably got impatient that he wasn't dying quick enough. And so probably ended up strangling him just like he did with Gary Smith. And like I said, that's what I mean when I mean at this point he was probably getting sloppy, because if he had just let the cyanide work, these deaths might have been attributed to other causes.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because if you're not looking for cyanide, it's very difficult to detect. It does not stay in your system very long. Other than a couple of spots on the skin and stuff like that, which I don't even know if those might go away after a little while too, but it doesn't stay in your system if you're not looking for it.
Yeah.
So, it just looks like he had a heart attack or something like that. But he didn't do that. He strangled it. Strangled him as well. Now, in September of 1983, the body of Louis Masgay was found in Orangetown, New York. He had a bullet hole in the back of his head. Now, this was the guy that had disappeared in 1981 and had been frozen for several years. Now, what ended up happening with this guy, much like the pharmacist that he stuffed in the barrel, Kuklinski had told this guy that I can sell you a whole shit ton of blank VCR tapes, because apparently, back in the day, those were super valuable. Right. He was going to buy $100,000 worth of blank VCR tapes and resell them on the black market, evidently. So there was this business deal, and obviously there were no videotapes. Kuklinski was just going to take the money and kill him. So this was one of the guys that, on the advice of Mister Softee, Robert Pronge, who they were going to see if they could freeze him for a long time and then dump him and see if that would mess up the time of death. So this was the guy. So they did end up finding the body, and it had been 2 years since he had disappeared. Now, the shitty thing about this is that the thing about freezing a body is that if you let it thaw all the way before dumping it, then probably you would get away with it, because that does mess up the time of death, because it would have been, because they said when they found the body, it looked like he had only been dead for a few days, right? However, this September had been particularly warm. When they took the body to the coroner and he cut it open for an autopsy, he found ice crystals inside the body, inside the heart. Right. So immediately he knew, okay, well, this dude has obviously been frozen for some time, and has not, didn't die 2 or 3 days ago as it appeared on the surface. So, as I said, this was again him getting sloppy. If only he had let the body thaw for a little bit longer.
All he had to do is read some cookbooks about how long it takes to freeze how to thaw a frozen turkey.
Well, it takes. Is it messed up that I thought that too? Because I was thinking, when we bought that turkey,
how long it takes to freeze a turkey?
It took 5 or 6 days to thaw that in the refrigerator.
A human body's more massive. It takes more than 5 days. It'd probably take about 7 days to fully. I would think.
Yeah.
Well, 7 days to fully thaw in a refrigerator.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Outside, it would thaw unevenly. I just moved him to the refrigerator and let him sit in there for about a week.
Until he was nice and thawed.
Nice and thawed, yeah.
That's why he didn't wait long enough. He was impatient. That was his problem.
Impatient, man.
Well, another thing that he did too.
I think he just didn't care.
I think he didn't because he hadn't been caught in so long. Another thing that he messed up was that he wrapped the body in plastic bags, which also further insulated it and kept it from thawing out completely.
He'd been killing so many people and hadn't been even caught. He wasn't even a suspect that he didn't care.
Yeah.
He thought he was impervious.
Also, the guy was wearing the same clothes that he'd been wearing as the day he disappeared 2 years earlier.
Yeah, I would have stripped his ass fucking nude.
So they thought that was a little suspicious also. And like I said, when they found the ice crystals during the autopsy, they're like, well, clearly this dude was killed 2 years ago and has been frozen somewhere. Like I said, they never determined where he was frozen. Could have been in the ice cream truck. That's probably unlikely. It would still be
hard to find out when he actually was frozen and who was around him at the time of disappearance. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because it would be unclear. And that's what they were trying to do, is they were trying to muddle the time of death. So you wouldn't know it exactly.
Because the only thing they're trying to do is try to avoid an indictment.
Right.
Because if you don't get indicted, then there's never any kind of trial. And that's all you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So in a way, it was good enough, probably.
Yeah. Now, the fact that he had tried to freeze the body and hadn't, it hadn't thawed all the way or whatever, and that he kind of got the reputation. Like I said, I don't know if he did it in more cases than this, but this was the one body that they found that they knew he had kept frozen. He might have done it with other victims as well, but this is what gave him the name the Iceman. It wasn't because he was cold-blooded or anything like that, even though it's kind of
he was freezing people.
That's kind of like a nice double-sided, kind of nice double-sided name there, but that wasn't why. They started calling him that because of this guy, because he kept him in a freezer. Now, the New Jersey State Police detective, Pat Kane, at this point, Kuklinski is on his radar because, one, he's been associated with a gang in northern New Jersey, who's, kind of like had a lot of shit going on. He's kind of starts building a file on the guy. And these 5 unsolved homicides were attributed to him because in each case, he had been the last person to see the victim alive. Now, these were Gary Smith, Daniel Deppner, Louis Masgay, and George Maliband, and also Paul Hoffman, the pharmacist. Although, like I said, they never found his body, although they did find the other 4. So, in 1985, there was a task force kind of convened. And this was all different, local law enforcement, state law enforcement, federal law enforcement. And they're going to, they called this Operation Iceman. And they went after him specifically because he had been linked to these 5 murders. And also he was the head of this gang. So what they started to do was, so Kuklinski had this associate, a friend of his even, and in later interviews, he called him quite a close friend, and even close enough that this guy and his wife had even, I think, come to his house, for dinner one time, which was a big deal because he never did that. This guy's name was Phil Solomini. And this guy, too, this was a guy that Kuklinski later said he was the only friend I had that I didn't kill. Right. This was the only guy. Now, this guy decided to flip. And he became a police informant. What he ended up doing was he introduced Kuklinski to an undercover agent who was a special agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms named Dominic Polifrone. Now, Polifrone said that he was, and he's very funny to watch on the documentary because he comes across, maybe this works, I don't know, but he comes across very much like, from a Martin Scorsese movie, like a gangster like that. He's like, I told them I was a wise guy from blah, blah, blah. And what I was. So he told them that his name was Dominic Michael Provenzano and that he wanted someone killed. And so he wore a wire. I mean, he spent a long time. I think it was a year and a half. He kind of spent time ingratiating himself with Kuklinski and his other associates so he wouldn't seem suspicious, like he was just coming out of nowhere. And he kind of slowly ingratiated himself into Kuklinski's circle and eventually started talking with him over the phone about wanting someone murdered. Now, he was wearing a wire and he got Kuklinski to say all kind of things on this tape about how he was going to carry out this hit. Now, later on, Polifrone and his superiors speculated that probably Kuklinski was so cavalier about telling him all of these things because he was planning to kill him. Like he would usually do. Which is why I don't know if they planned the investigation to go longer, but at some point they were like, okay, well, the reason that he's telling you all this stuff is probably because he's going to fucking whack you, so we need to move on this, right now. But he did get enough... like I said, he made up this fictional person that he wanted killed. It's it was this cocaine deal, and it's it went bad. It's this really wealthy Jewish kid, and I want him bumped off, and, how are you going to do it? And then he would say all this stuff about the cyanide, and he was like, oh, really? Fuck, you don't just fucking plug him with the iron or whatever? And he's using the lingo and stuff, because I've heard the tapes. And then he's like, no, man, cyanide, it's too messy. It's cyanide's so much easier. You can just spray it up their nose, or you can do this and that and the other thing. And, so they're talking very clearly about killing this dude. So, December of 1986, Kuklinski and Polifrone were going to meet to get the cyanide for this murder that was supposed to take place. So Polifrone goes and gets cyanide, which is actually fake, that he gets made somewhere to look like cyanide. Now, Kuklinski, to his credit, I guess, was a weird way of saying it, he was suspicious. Story goes that he went somewhere and he put the cyanide, quote unquote, on a burger and gave it to a dog. When the dog did not die, he said, he just decided he was going to get the fuck out, and he just went home. So he didn't continue with the meeting or whatever.
He knew he might have been being set up.
Because he figured he was being set up, which he was.
Yeah.
However, when he got on his way home, I think he got home and then him and his wife were going out to breakfast, like a place where they went to breakfast all the time. And there was a roadblock and basically they got him out of the car and arrested him. Now they pulled his wife out of the car, like put the fucking gun to her head, put the thing in her back and everything like that. And apparently he got really mad at that. And it took like several people to like restrain him because he's a like very, very big dude. Because like I said, he beat the shit out of his wife. But apparently if anybody else touched her, he got very, very aggravated. And he did in this situation. Also, she had no idea what was going on. But basically the guy just told her, because she's like, what the fuck is going on? Why are you arresting us? And all this other stuff. All the guy said to her was, like the arresting officer, he's a murderer. That's all he said to her. Yeah. So they were also going to charge her because I guess they didn't keep, according to her and according to him, there were no guns kept in the house. Like I said, he tried to keep everything very separate. He didn't want his family involved in anything. Like I said, probably he didn't want leverage with all the scumbags he was dealing with, but he also tried to keep the two things compartmentalized. So he didn't keep any guns in his house, but apparently there was one that he kept in the family car. So they were going to charge her, I guess as leverage against him, they were going to charge her with like a weapons violation because the car was found and the car was in her name and like the gun was in the car or whatever. So he ends up getting charged with 5 counts of murder, 6 weapons violations, also attempted murder, robbery, attempted robbery. Now, they think that maybe he was planning on fleeing the country at some point soon because he had a whole bunch of money in Swiss bank accounts. He had flight tickets for a flight to Switzerland that was,
trying to get to neutral territory.
Yeah, he was trying to get the fuck out of there. So they think he might have been planning to run. So I guess it was like probably a good time that they got him. But they took his passport away and they put him on a $2 million bond. Now, several people gave evidence at his trial, including like a lot of his associates that had flipped. Obviously, Polifrone, who'd been working undercover for 18 months, I believe it was. They played the tapes at the trial, which, were very damning evidence because they were clearly talking about killing someone and how they were going to do it. So March 1988, he gets a guilty verdict. He was found guilty of murdering Gary Smith and Daniel Deppner. But because I guess they didn't give him the death penalty because it wasn't like a serial killer type situation. I guess it was almost kind of like because it was business associates or because it was, because of that.
For people who are not in the United States, okay, the United States has a long fucking history of organized crime, especially Italian mob.
Yeah, even though this guy was Polish or second generation.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
Polish
it's
and
that
Irish.
same kind of fucking thing.
Yeah.
And there's this kind of weird romance America has.
Definitely.
With this type of
UK
fucking
does
offender.
too a little bit.
Yeah. They have put gangsters on the stand before, and those gangsters just charm the shit out of juries. Mm-hmm. And juries basically acquitted these guys before.
Yeah, because they're like, he seems so
They're
nice.
like, well, you know what? This is between criminals, and this is, and he's kind of cool. Not guilty.
Well, I think...
And there's a lot of that. And it actually kind of goes into the, how should I say, straight realm. Like Teamsters unions, and unions are all linked in with these same guys.
Well, like I said, we went into that a little bit.
We went into that before.
When we were talking about the Irishman.
We're talking about the movie called The Irish.
The Irishman, yeah.
So, The Irishman. So there are a lot of American unions where it's not clear-cut where criminal and, I guess you could say, citizen, where it kind of... In the United States has an interesting fucking... Is it
pretty much criminals all the way down?
Yeah, United States is very interesting.
Criminals all the way down.
Yeah, United States. I mean, especially when you start getting into politics. When you get into politics,
it is criminals.
They're all fucking criminals.
It's criminals.
Yeah, they're all criminals. It's just
there's not a lot of difference.
No, they're all criminals.
Well, and the thing is, I don't think. Here's the thing: if Kuklinski had just killed other gangsters, I don't think everyone would be just like, But because he admitted to killing animals, which fuck that. You know what I mean? Especially kitties. Don't you fucking mess with kitties.
Well, he was a little boy when
Don't
he did
fuck
that,
with cats.
but still, I'd fuck a little boy up for that.
I will kick your little kid's ass if they do shit to my cat.
You ever fucking touch our cat? You ever touch Pookie? You're fucking dead.
That's what I mean.
All right.
And seriously.
By my word.
Yeah.
Jenny knows.
I said,
knows.
like I said.
Jenny knows.
I'd probably eat you in a stew.
Yeah, I would fucking kill you if you
don't fucking do that. Like I'm sorry, there's no excuse. There is no excuse.
That's like killing somebody's child.
That's what I mean. That's like killing a baby.
Yeah.
Knock it off.
All right.
But if he had just killed other gangsters, everyone would be, it would just be like, a lot of the mafia stuff, why it's romanticized and stuff, because mostly they were just killing other gangsters, and everyone's like, who cares? Because they're all dirtbags.
And they're all in that same gang.
And they're all in the same, and they know that, they get into the shit, and they know that that's what's going to happen.
It's their culture.
Right. But the fact that Kuklinski admitted, 1, killing animals, 2, killing random-ass people just in the street, he shouldn't have done that. Then... Okay, then fuck him. You know what I mean? That's what I mean. If you had just killed other gangsters, no one would be all that concerned. He probably would have been all right. No, it's true. No one would be all that concerned. Because he's just killing other scumbags or other bad dudes. It's like no one would care. It's like what everybody loves Dexter, even though it's a fictional character, because he only kills other serial killers.
I'm not going to go as far to say that all of the American gangsters that are mobster types are scumbags, because that's just not really true.
I'm just using that as a general
term. They're in another game.
It's another culture. It's a subculture, if you want to call it that.
For the most part, there was honor in a lot of that. There were some shitbirds and shitbags and rats. You know what I mean? They had that. But that's between them. I'm not going to get involved in that shit. That's what I mean.
That's their thing. And like I said, they know what they're getting into when they do it. It's like nobody gets into the fucking mob without knowing what they're getting into. Everybody knows that shit.
You have to understand the origins of the mob. The mob actually can go back into Italy during the fucking times of the fucking Muslim conquest, when they were in occupied territory. The only representation the Italian people had were these mobs, because they were being occupied. And that was hundreds of years ago, back during, you know what I mean? I guess you could say that was pre-Crusades era. That's when a lot of that shit started, evidently, according to legend. So I understand the tradition, But that's just the Italians. There were organized crime. There were organized criminals going all throughout Europe and the United States that had a different origin. But the Italian mob actually has a very long history, and in a way, you could say they were kind of like an underground legitimate government for a while.
Well, yeah, it almost gets to that point. I mean, once it gets
they were like a parallel government.
Yeah.
Whether or not they maintained that, that's on you to believe that or not. A lot of it had to do with just money, making a hustle, and the little guy trying to get his piece. I totally understand it. Just watch some good movies on it. You'll see watch Goodfellas. Watch Goodfellas.
Or The Irishman.
Yeah. They weren't fucking lazy scumbags. They were at least working, quote unquote, working for their money.
Not always legally.
Yeah,
obviously.
They were working for their money.
They're kind of like around the fringes.
In general, they were supposed to be men of honor.
Yeah. In general.
Like
I said,
and I think a lot of them were.
They would only kill you if you did something.
If you deserved it.
Like you didn't pay them back, or you did something to fuck one of them over.
Or you ratted, or you
something
did
like that.
And this. So there was you know what I mean? We may have some of them out there in the audience. So I'm just going to say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't know.
Look, and I understand. they had their own warrior virtue
you do what
in their
you
own
gotta
way,
do.
and they were doing what they had to do.
I get that.
And I respect.
It's a tough world out there. I get that.
Now, I'm learning more about the Mexican mob, and there's an amount of respect there. I mean, they got shitbags just like there are shitbags in any organization, but I can understand the situation that they're in too. I mean, they're in Mexico, a government that doesn't really represent them, a government that's kind of fucking over the economy of Mexico, and you have these little guys who are trying to make money somehow. Narcotics are involved. Fucking the cops aren't fucking doing shit. So who actually is in charge? difficult to say
Yeah.
in Mexico. Mexico's a
Well,
neutral
you can
zone.
understand how this happens.
You can understand how it evolves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can say, well, it's against the law. He goes, well, who's in control of the law in Mexico? Those dudes aren't any good either.
Yeah.
You know? So I understand it.
Well, like I said, it's understandable. And like
Yeah.
I said, if this guy had just killed, like, had just been, like, paid, it's like, hey, whack this other shithead that
Yeah.
did this, that, and the other, did a terrible thing, or this other criminal, it's like no one would really care. But like I said, because he confessed that he killed, like, just random people walking down the street, which could have been you or me, and he killed animals, which, like I said, I'm not down with that, sorry.
No, you kill animals, bro.
That's what I mean.
You know what I mean? Fucking,
That, like
that's
I
like
said,
killing children.
That's like killing a baby.
And I'm a hunter. There
Yeah.
are game animals and pet animals. You don't kill pets.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's what I mean. That's fucked up. It's like killing
Yeah.
someone's baby.
The
Knock it off.
game animals are deer and rabbit, herbivores who are high
Well, and
reproductive.
even then, if
Yeah.
you're going to kill them, you're going to eat them.
You're gonna eat 'em.
And you kill them
That's right.
humanely.
Exactly.
You don't kill them to, like, you don't make them suffer.
No. And it's not for your amusement.
Right.
A fucking
That's fucked up.
a game animal in general is a herbivore. They have high reproductive rates. You kill them with honor through the hunt. It's quick. And you cull. You go for the oldest ones, the ones that have already reproduced. Shit, like, I'm not big into, and you know me.
Yeah.
I come from a culture. I'm not into this trapping. Okay, trapping.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
I think trapping is fucking dishonorable.
Yeah.
I'm not into these omnivores. You don't kill shit like possums and raccoons. Okay, that's not a game animal.
Yeah.
Okay, a game animal is a herbivore, a rabbit, a fucking deer. I kind of even felt like a murderer killing all those goddamn squirrels, okay? Because you got to kill 50 of them to have a fucking meal.
They're so
okay?
cute,
They're
too.
little bitty little
They're so
things.
cute
Let
and
the
they're so
squirrels live.
playful.
Let the squirrels live. But don't fucking kill the raccoons and the foxes and the coyotes. Those are dogs.
Yeah.
Those are dogs. Leave them alone.
Well, it's like you can't really, I mean, you can eat them if you have to, but it's like, that's not really.
Well, the way I look at it is that predators and omnivores, okay, they don't have as many children in a litter.
Yeah.
They're not meant to be eaten. You know what I mean? They haven't evolved for that. They're eating berries and occasionally things like meat. But the herbivores are prey animals. They have a lot of children.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because
Big
in the
litters.
wild,
'Cause in
they
the wild,
get
they're being
predated
eaten.
upon.
They're
Yes.
being eaten. And those are the ones you're supposed to eat.
Yeah.
Shit like predators and omnivores, you're not really supposed to eat them.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to eat bear. You're not supposed to eat fucking cats.
Yeah, you're messing up the
You're
kind
not
of
supposed to
ecological
eat,
balance,
Yeah, you're
dude.
fucking up the ecological balance. They don't have many children in a litter. And here's the deal. Shitbirds and Yankees and shit, they'll fucking kill that kind of shit. But people from the country know that. They're not eating that.
Yeah.
You know, they're eating deer and they're eating things that have a lot of children. And I don't really like eating rabbits. I think they're kind of small.
Plus, they're adorable.
Yeah.
I used to have a pet rabbit named Scooter.
I kind of see them all as equal.
Yeah.
You kill a fucking deer and you can eat off that for a long period of time. It's one life. You take it. You give thanks to the fucking animal spirits.
Yeah, like you do.
And like just like the Indians, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that one life can sustain you for a long time. A rabbit can't sustain you for a very long time.
Yeah, they're very little.
You know,
like I said,
little.
it's
They're
you
little.
know, it's different if you're like, you know, in a
If you're
survival
starving, right,
situation.
right.
Sure, no one's
Right.
gonna like get on your ass about it then.
But really, for just a game situation, deer.
Yeah,
And deer that have lived to reproduce.
yeah, that have already had
They've already reproduced.
a
They've lived
generation
their
of
life.
children. Yeah,
They have evolved to be eaten. That's how they've evolved. They have, you know what I mean? They fucking deer reproduce quickly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, as I said, like at his first trial, which was just for 2 murders, he actually, his defense tried to argue that, like, you know, the shit that he said on the tape about like killing the dude. He's like, oh, I was just like, making stuff up because I wanted to impress this dude that was in the mob. That's what he tried to say.
Yeah.
Like on the tape and everything, but they're like, yeah, no. So he did actually get a guilty verdict. Now, there was supposed to be a second trial that was going to be for the murders of George Malaband and Louis Masgay, but because I guess Kuklinski didn't want the hassle, so he just said, well, you know what? I'll just plead guilty to this, okay? I killed those two guys. So now the murder of Paul Hoffman, the pharmacist who he allegedly put in the barrel, put the cement in it, and then left it outside the hotel by the diner, he was going to be convicted of that, but they didn't have enough evidence. So they basically said, okay, if you confess to it and like kind of help us find the body, although I don't think they ever did find it, then we will drop the charges for that murder, and we will also drop the charges against his wife for the gun possession. And also, I think his son had like some bullshit like marijuana possession charge or something like that. He's like, we'll drop that charge too if you confess to that one as well. So he did. So for those four, he got 2 60-year sentences. One for the first two guys and the one for the second two guys. Those were going to be concurrent. And so he would have been eligible for parole, but not until 2046. Now, in 2003, he also admitted that he had killed this other guy, and we'll kind of get into that in a little bit too.
We're going to get into that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Man, this show's going on 3 hours.
It's almost over.
Okay.
So this was the sixth murder that he confessed to, and this wasn't until 2003. He was already in prison. In 1980, there was an NYPD detective named Peter Calabro who had been murdered. Now, Kuklinski confessed to this. He said he got another 30 years for this, although it wouldn't have mattered because he was never going to get out anyway. He said that the Gambino crime family, or a guy from the Gambino crime family named Sammy the Bull Gravano, had paid him to kill Peter Calabro. Now, Kuklinski said that at the time that he killed this guy, he said basically, he's like, I took the van, it's like the road was covered with snow, I kind of pulled over so that cars had to go around me, and then I hid behind a snowbank, and when the guy drove past, he came out and he just like fucking blew his head off with a sawed-off shotgun, like shot his head off like he did to that other guy. So he said he did that. He said that he didn't know that it was a cop. He was a crooked cop. He was like, on the take from the mob or whatever. He didn't know it was a cop at the time, but they asked him, they said, well, if you had known it was a cop, would you have done it? He's like, yeah, I probably would have done it anyway, because he got paid for doing it. So, apparently, Sammy Gravano, who had allegedly paid him to kill this guy, was in prison for drug trafficking at this stage. He also got indicted for the murder, and Kuklinski was going to testify against him. Now, Sammy Gravano, his lawyer, said that because of this whole brouhaha, that Kuklinski had tried to extort $200,000 from Sammy Gravano just from this whole situation. And the FBI later confirmed this fact. So there had been that kind of shit going on. Now, Kuklinski was supposed to testify against Gravano in this case. However, Kuklinski died in 2006, and after that, they dropped those charges. Now, Gravano was still in prison for 20 years for drug trafficking, but they were going to indict him for this because he had supposedly paid for this guy to be bumped off, and they were going to try him for that, and Kuklinski was going to be the main witness, but he died. Yeah. So, apparently he died of natural causes, but some people still think, meh. So, now, in the interviews, like I said, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, in the interviews, he basically said he had killed, like I said, every interview, they were a few years apart, the total kind of went higher and higher. Like, eventually, it's like, at first it was kind of like, oh, maybe 100, and then later it was like, oh, maybe 200, maybe 300, but so they just kept, like, getting more. And he said that he used pretty much anything. He was not, like, particular about one method of murder. He would stab you, he would shoot you, he would poison you, he would use a crossbow, he said he blew somebody up with a grenade, he would put people in cars and like set them on fire. He would do all this kind of stuff. Now, he did say that he liked cyanide the best because it was like the easiest to conceal or whatever. He said at one time, and I don't know if this was confirmed or not, but he said that apparently either he was tasked to kill this guy, or this guy just pissed him off and he just wanted to kill him for whatever reason, but it was like in a gay bar. And he's like, so he said that he dressed up as the gayest gay ever. Like, he said he put on, like, the loudest outfit
Yeah,
that
he
he
was
could.
dancing around.
And then he said he went out there and, like, danced and stuff. And it's so fun. It's, like, funny in the interview.
Imagine
because,
a 6'5" fucking gangster, hard as shit.
Well, that's what he said.
Fucking
That he's like,
gay as shit. I would have loved to have seen it.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't know if this happened or not, but yeah.
He had a bunch of cyanide in a damn glass.
In a glass, like in
and
a drink glass.
Spilled it on the
it
guy like it was on accident. And then walked, oh, I'm sorry. And then walked away, and that dude fucking died.
And he died. Allegedly of a heart attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, was that verified?
I don't know. See, I think that's one of the ones that
he might have fucking just made that. But you know what? That was a good idea.
That's what I mean. It's
it
like,
sounds like that
when I was like hearing all this stuff about cyanide, and even some of the people that were like, even like some of the forensic scientists and stuff were saying about cyanide, it's like, oh, it's very hard to detect if you're not looking for it. It's like it doesn't stay in your body more than I'm like, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Evidently, it happened in public, and everybody saw it, but he played it off like it was just an accident.
Well, that's what he said. He's like, well, it's in the middle of the club. It's like everyone's bumping in, everybody's spilling their drinks and stuff like that. So he's like, so I thought that would be the easiest way to do it, like on a crowded dance floor, because no one would notice you.
There was a video game called Hitman.
Yeah.
And fucking some of those missions were fucking difficult like that. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense that something like that would happen. I'm gonna kill you as dressing up as a gay.
Yeah, he said it's funny because
70s gay.
He was almost trying to like not for some reason this was hilarious to me. But like in the interview when he was describing this incident, whether it happened or not, I don't know.
It sounded like it could happen.
Well, he was almost like the way he was talking. He was like trying not to offend gay people, which I thought was he's a killer.
Yeah,
and he's like, well, I don't want gay people to be mad at me.
Yeah,
because I'm saying, oh, I was swishing around. He's like, wait, is that offensive? Like the way he was kind of like that, which I thought was like very weird. Because I'm like, you're talking about killing someone, and you're like afraid that you're gonna like offend somebody that you're fucking dressing like, I don't know. It was like really weird.
I would like to get down to the bottom of that to see if
it was really weird to me.
It's
like
hard,
I said, a lot of the stuff I don't know because like I said, he told the story about the crossbow thing. Like he just shot this random dude, like that he was gonna ask for direction. He just shot him in the dude with in the head with a crossbow just to see if it would work.
Yeah, I don't know what crossbow he's talking about, but I'm gonna tell you this, because I have my own bow. I was a bow hunter. And I got an old high country fucking compound bow, and I gotta bust that shit out on a Rambo day one of these days.
Rambo day, when's
on a
that?
Rambo day. It's got like a 120-pound pull on it. But he said he used a crossbow and it shoots somebody in the head and it went halfway through. In my experience, a fucking arrow goes right through and keeps on going like nothing even happened.
He said it went halfway through the guy's
I don't know
head.
what kind of crossbow he was using.
It was a cheap-ass one.
It might have been a cheap one or something that didn't have a whole lot of a fucking pull on it.
Yeah.
Because my bow would go through fucking 5 heads.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's like I took archery in high school. And I mean, we even had like not even crossbows, because my brother had a crossbow for a while, but we even had just one of those compound bows, and that would go through. Yeah. That would go through some shit.
Yeah, I got fucking out there broadheads, I got fucking poison pods, I got everything out there.
He's got all kinds of
I got poison pods
He's
out
got
there.
all kinds of
Just a fucking few grains of that fucking old-fashioned poison fucking in your bloodstream would just kill you deader than shit in a few seconds. Yeah. I got some of that back there. And that's fucking 80s. That's the fucking poison we had from the 80s. I'm not even sure that shit's still legal.
It's probably not, so you probably shouldn't have said that out loud.
It doesn't matter. It's only a little bit.
He's got all kind of stories. Like I said, he's got stories about like tying dudes up and putting them in the cave and letting the cave rats eat them. He said that one time in Rio de Janeiro that he killed these 2 drug dealers and castrated them. He also said that he caught a rapist in Miami and like castrated him also and then threw him into the ocean and then he got eaten by sharks. So it's like, did he do some of the shit? Probably. It sounds like some shit he would do.
He definitely killed a lot of people.
He did. But like I said, later he might have like exaggerated because I think he liked the publicity
and the attention
and the attention, like a lot of those guys do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, they asked him if there was ever any murder that he had regretted. And he's like, well, not really. But he's like, there was this one. He didn't regret killing the guy, but he regretted the way he did it. He said there was this one guy. I don't know if it was one that he just killed for his own personal reasons or because he got hired to do it. But he said this guy, He's like, he was just crying and praying and everything
Yeah,
like that.
he got hired to kill that guy.
I think, yeah. And he was like, so basically he
broke into his apartment.
Yeah, he was crying and shit so much that he's like, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll give you half an hour, and if God comes down and intervenes in the situation,
then I'll let you go. Yeah.
Then I'll let you go.
Yeah.
And then he's like, well, half an hour later, he's like, you know, God did not come down. God did not change the circumstances.
Yeah, he blew that dude's brains
So that
out.
was that. And he said, all he said was, I shouldn't have done it that way. He didn't say I shouldn't have killed that guy. He just said, I wish I hadn't done it.
Now, if I
that
remember
particular way."
correctly, it also turned out that his girlfriend was hiding in the damn closet.
That's what was in the movie. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if that's what really happened.
I remember seeing
then he
a
might have
video
let
where
her
he
go.
said that he let her go.
He might have,
And
because
then-
he had a thing. He would not kill women or children.
And then I think that in that same case, he covered up that murder by planting a bomb
yeah,
that blew up.
he did
And
say
it
he
made-
blew up a guy with a grenade one time.
Yeah.
at least one time.
It's been a long time since I've seen the
Now
interviews.
I think
I
that
thought he fucking hit it by blowing up a bomb in there, and people thought that that the victim was making a bomb and blew himself up.
I think that was in the movie too. I
that
think
in the
they
movie?
dramatized that in the movie.
Yeah, okay.
Because the thing about the girlfriend being in the closet and all that, I'm pretty sure that was in the movie too. I've seen it a
Yeah.
couple times, so it was a long time ago that I seen it.
From what I remember from the interview, he realized that there was somebody in that damn closet. He pulled her out and talked to her and told her, this is just business.
Yeah.
And she was like, don't kill me. And he's like, if I let you go, will you say anything? She says, I will never say anything. Because she didn't evidently know the
Yeah,
guy.
that was it. Yeah, they put that in the movie.
That she didn't really know the guy
Yeah.
that well. And she goes, okay, then get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And then he let her go.
Well, as you would. I mean,
I'd
especially.
have done the same.
I mean,
bro.
especially if you didn't know that guy that
She
well.
said she didn't know him that well. She had just been
If
picked
some
up.
like 6'5" dude told me
Yeah.
and that I just saw like kill a guy, and then
From
he's
what
like,
I
"Hey,
remember,
I'm
he
like,
said
"Whew,
he-
I'm not saying a word."
He
Nope.
said, from
Nope.
what I remember, he said he took her ID and all her information.
Yeah.
And said to
So
fucking,
he knew where she lived
we
and
will
everything.
find you if you fucking. She goes,
Right.
I would never say anything, and then fucking.
Which, yeah, if you're smart,
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
you never would. Like I said, because you just saw what the fuck happened.
Right.
So, and like I said, so now, how reliable are the claims of him of being? Now he says that he worked for all 5 of the big crime families in New York City. You know, all of them, as well as the very famous DeCavalcante crime family of New Jersey. And he says that all of them, at varying times, hired him on contract hits.
It wouldn't surprise me if that happened, but we're not talking about the top guys.
Yeah.
We're talking about the mid level guys from all those families and the lower level guys. Wouldn't surprise me
Yeah.
if he got a lot of business from the lower
He
level
may
guys.
have. Although, like I said, a lot of the crime families themselves, the people that have talked and, like, you know, people that have worked undercover and stuff like that, they're not sure how reliable his claims are. Because he says that, for example, he says that he was one of the hitmen that helped to assassinate Paul Castellano, who was kind of the boss of the Bonanno crime family.
Yeah.
That was in 1979. Or in, no, that was 85. And then there was another guy named Carmine Galante who was supposed to be killed in 1979. That was the Bonanno guy. Paul Castellano was from the Gambino family. He said that he was involved in that, and those were really big, like high-profile gang hits. Mm-hmm. He said he was involved in both of those. Like, that he didn't say he was the only hitman, but he said he was involved, or that he was there, or he was one of the hitmen. And sources close to the crime families, as well as people that investigated the crime families, say that is unlikely.
Okay.
He also said that that John Gotti had hired him to kidnap and murder John Favara, who was the guy who accidentally killed John Gotti's 12-year-old son after he hit him with a car and killed him. And Kuklinski said that John Gotti hired him to kill that guy. And that is also a dubious claim.
He's trying to write himself into
He
mob
also
history.
said that he was one of the people. Now, when they first asked him, because when I saw one of the interviews, one of the interviewers, like that they did for HBO, they asked him about Jimmy Hoffa. Now, we talked about The Irishman, and we talked about Frank Sheeran saying that he was the one that killed Jimmy Hoffa and, that they burned him in an incinerator and whatnot. The first time that they asked Kuklinski about Hoffa, he kind of hemmed and hawed, implying that maybe he knew what happened, but that maybe he was there, maybe not. Like, he was very cagey about it. However, later on, he said, like, at first he said he knew who killed him. But then later, he said, no, it was me.
No, I don't believe
He
that.
said what happened.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, I killed him. And then they put his body in a 55-gallon barrel, like a drum, like, Kuklinski would usually do. And then they set the body on fire, and then they welded the drum shut and then buried it. Even though they killed him in Detroit, they said they drove the barrel all the way back to New Jersey and then buried it in a junkyard. And then he said that, they thought that somebody might find the body because someone was going to flip that knew where the body was. So they took the drum, they dug it up, they put it in the trunk of a car that was in the junkyard, and then it got compacted, like it got crushed, and then that crushed metal got sent off to Japan and made into other cars.
Bullshit.
So that was his story.
Bullshit. I believe that most likely what happened is Jimmy Hoffa's body, just like out of the movie The Irishman, was sent to a mortuary,
and they just incinerated it.
That they owned, and they incinerated it just like all the other bodies and spread the ashes. I mean, because these guys didn't.
Well, it seems like the easiest, most obvious thing to do.
They had resources. They didn't have to go to those kind of weird lengths to get rid of a body. They just got rid of the body the way you get rid of all other bodies. You put it in a damn mortuary incinerator and burn it down to ashes.
And the thing is, if you
destroys all the DNA, you'd never be able to.
If in the mob, if you're associated with owns a mortuary,
that's how you do it.
That's conveniently.
That's how you do it.
You could have a mob-fronted mortuary.
Yeah.
That would be a smart thing to do.
They had them.
And they could just get rid of bodies like that, like you would get rid of a regular body.
Just like any other body.
No one would ever find it.
And that makes so much more sense. Before, I had believed that maybe some of the stories that he was buried underneath a damn stadium that was under construction at that time that the mob had cut ties to. No. It would be the...
Well, it seemed like too much trouble. It's
too much trouble. It would have been the most logical thing. You take him to the mortuary you got leverage with, and you have him fucking burnt down into ashes just along with the rest of the bodies.
Well, and the reason that... I mean... One, there's not a lot of... I mean, obviously nobody knows what happened to Jimmy Hoffa. I mean...
He was reduced to dust.
Maybe Frank Sheeran knows. Maybe he did kill him. I don't know.
Nah.
But,
he was reduced to ashes.
I'm just... Well, no, I'm saying Frank Sheeran, like in the movie, The Irishman.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he did have something to do with it. I don't think Kuklinski had anything to do with it. Because, like I said, at first, he just said he knew who killed him. And then later he said, oh, I did it. But then this elaborate thing, it's like, one... If you killed the guy in Detroit, why would you drive him all the way? Like somebody pointed out, it's like, look, Detroit has one of the biggest lakes in the world.
Yeah,
it's like, why would you just dump it in the bottom of the lake? No one would ever find it. Why would you drive it all the way back to fucking New Jersey and risk getting caught?
I lived in Detroit. You could go to a random fucking abandoned building and throw those ashes in the corner of a fucking room and crush any kind of teeth that you might see. And that fucking will never be found.
Yeah.
Because they're going to fucking bulldoze that old building along with the rest of the other shit that they bulldozed in Detroit. Detroit was like straight out something out of The Crow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Fucking.
So I kind of feel like a lot of his kind of higher profile look, I was involved in this, that, and the other.
No.
Like, I don't think so. And honestly, like one of the writers, like one guy that wrote a biography of him that actually like interviewed him at length, he apparently like was making a joke with Kuklinski one day. And he said, I have a feeling if I listen to you long enough, you'll tell me you shot President Lincoln.
Yeah.
And Kuklinski apparently thought that was very funny and said, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
So, I think that he kind of exaggerated. Like I said, he was a cold-blooded killer. He did kill many people.
But he liked to tell his stories.
But I think that he liked to kind of, blow itself up a little bit. So, like I said, a lot of the murders that he said he committed have not been substantiated. I'm not saying he didn't commit them. I'm just saying they haven't been substantiated or connected to him. Or
I think he killed a lot of low-level gangsters.
Yeah.
And maybe a few mid-level ones. I don't think he was as well connected as he said, but I never thought that.
Yeah.
Because most of the claims that he made was of pretty just like local
Right.
low-level dudes that he fucking killed because another low-level dude hired him to do it.
Yeah.
And he never claimed to be in part of any kind of family.
Yeah, he never did claim that.
No.
He did say that all 5 of the major New York crime families and one of the major New
Hired
Jersey
him.
crime hired him for
Right.
various jobs.
But I have a feeling that it's low-level guys in those
It may have
families
been.
that were hiring
Like,
him to do
hey,
it.
here's $40,000. Go bump off
Because
that
I
dude.
don't think he was the kind of guy that fucking the dudes at the very top wanted to be associated with.
Probably not.
Those guys weren't that violent and weren't that murderous at the top.
Yeah.
They were trying to live kind of normal lives. A lot of the guys at the
Well,
top, compared to what Kuklinski
This is
was
kind
doing.
of a fucked up thing kind of say, but you have to, I mean, this was their business. It was their
Yeah.
livelihood. It's like, yes, they killed people, obviously, if people, obstructed what they were trying to do or whatever, and they would bump you off if you were, like, fucking with them. But in the aggregate, they were just trying to make a lot of money. Now,
Yeah.
if they needed to kill you to accomplish that goal, they would do that.
Right, but Kuklinski was about killing people, not some. I mean, he did make money, but he just killed fucking people. He wasn't so.
Yeah,
much
he
in-
did it for free.
He
didn't like.
If he got mad, he'd do it.
Right.
So he wasn't the kind of guy that dudes at the very top of the mafia would want around them.
He seemed like he would be. Well,
he was somebody that they would call on.
He's
maybe.
unpredictable.
Right.
Like, I can see how that would be valuable if you
Right.
needed some dirty work
Yeah,
done.
you call on a guy like that, but you don't want him around your family. You don't
Right,
want
because
that dude-
clearly he could do it without any
Right.
remorse or without caring about it or even without caring about getting caught, really, because
Right.
he didn't really seem to be all that careful about it. So I could see how that might be a valuable asset to have around, but like you said, you wouldn't want him having like a high position in your organization because
No.
he had this kind of like
I think he was
this
most
temper where you weren't really sure when it was gonna
would
flare
boil
up.
over and kill you.
Right.
I think he basically what you're dealing with basically a mass murderer
Yeah.
that the mob's families knew about, and some of the guys at the bottom and the middle of the organization would access him every now and then to fucking take care of an enemy. But I don't really think he was, fucking too much in the mafia per se.
Yeah.
I mean, all he did was kill people.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't really start too many businesses. He tried to get into the porn copying business.
And he had kind of a burglar, like a car theft.
Yeah,
ring.
but that's the
He had
bottom
that.
of the barrel for the mafia.
It is, yeah.
The top.
That's low level shit.
The top of the mafia is shit like owning casinos, owning fucking running fucking unions. That's the top.
Yeah.
Not this, hitman jobs.
Yeah, like I
Hitman
said, this is
businesses.
just like dirty work.
That's
This is
dirty
like
work,
shit
right.
that you need to get done because
Right.
somebody's in your way or
Yeah.
or they fucked you over or whatever.
Yeah, so I think he's blowing his importance out of fucking.
I think that's
whack.
what like I said,
But he was killing
He's a terrible person and he did kill
Right.
a lot of people, but I do think that he inflated his
Yeah.
kill count somewhat.
I do have a soft spot for him. He had a fucking rough childhood. He grew up as
did.
Grew up as a badass.
He didn't have
He's
much of a chance,
paranoid.
honestly.
No, and you know what I mean. And he was killing bad guys mostly. Occasionally,
Although
would
he
just
beat
use
the
a
shit out of his
civilian-
wife too, which
Yeah,
is
you know.
that's not cool either.
But he was just a weird guy,
Yeah, very weird.
strange guy.
Although, like I said, he's fascinating to listen to.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, he's very entertaining to listen to.
yeah, creepy
Yeah.
and entertaining because, like
Yeah.
I said, he's very calm.
Yeah,
He's very calm.
And like I said earlier, he's the only guy out of this show so far that scared me.
I understand.
I would
that.
not want that dude around me.
I understand that.
Yeah, I wouldn't want it. Yeah.
Because, like I said, he just didn't care about anything.
No.
If you just, like I said,
It's not only that, it's that he was a professional about it, and he
Yeah.
fucking had physical fucking power, physical strength. He knew how to deal with weapons and poisons, and he could deceive you. And,
Yeah.
and you know what I mean, and poison you. And he was bad.
I mean, apparently, like, even some dude, like, even if you did something as minor, like I said, is like maybe cutting him off in traffic, or apparently, like, somebody just, like, flicked him off one time because he did something that pissed them off or whatever, and he killed
was-
that guy.
Yeah, well, he was a rage monster.
Yeah.
And you might set that dude off. And,
Right.
yeah. And you're not dealing with some fucking wannabe fucking pussy. This dude was a fucking serious badass.
Yeah.
A serious
And like I
badass.
said, he was a big, giant.
Big fucking
Dude.
6'5" dude. And he didn't need guns. He could use his fucking hands.
Yeah. And he did.
Yeah.
Or he would just use whatever was at hand.
And he wasn't some kind of weird
pipe,
fucking serial killer sexual pervert. He was just a fucking
No, he didn't
mean
care about
dude.
it. He didn't care about that.
He was just a badass
He
dude.
didn't care about
you know
that.
what I mean? Fucking, I would want to fuck with him.
Yeah, and
Like I said, Mister Kuklinski. It's Mr.
Sir.
Kuklinski. I'd be at Mr. Kuklinski's sir. Would be how I would address this dude at all times. I'd be walking on eggshells around that dude.
Yeah, I can see how everyone would.
Yeah.
So apparently, he's he was in prison for 18 years, and then he gets diagnosed with what they call Kawasaki disease.
Kawasaki disease, is that like Yamaha syndrome?
It's Yamaha syndrome.
Yeah, or Honda sickness.
Yeah. It's apparently, well, I guess the guy that discovered it was named Kawasaki. So that's like when your blood vessels become inflamed.
Okay.
So he gets sent to a medical center in Trenton, New Jersey. Now, like I said, he seemed to think because he was going to, be the star witness at the Sammy Gravano trial for, the murder trial, he seemed to think that someone was poisoning him. I don't know if that's the case. Like I said, they did an autopsy after he died, apparently, and they didn't find anything out of the ordinary. It looked like he had just died of a heart attack. But he seemed to believe that people were going to poison him because he was going to, testify at that trial. And, I mean, maybe, because Sammy Gravano did actually get off on that case because they dropped those charges because, Kuklinski was their main thing. So he gets sick. They take him to the hospital. Now, his wife, Barbara, who still has his last name because she said, I could have changed it, but she's like, she almost like the name seems, she hated him, but she almost like wanted to keep the name like to spite him, kind of, I think it seemed like. So she had actually divorced him in 1993, but she still kept visiting him, even though she hated his guts. But she kind of like let it lapse. So she would only come like once a year or something. Now, when he was dying, she came to visit him one last time. I believe that one of the daughters was with her, even though his children mostly like cut all ties with him, as you would. But she came to visit. Now, Kuklinski specifically asked, look, if I flatline, please resuscitate me. Now, Barbara, who was still, I guess, even though they had divorced, I guess she still had power of attorney or whatever it was, like, over him. She had signed a do not resuscitate order, and I guess that, I guess since he was in prison, that kind of, was over whatever he wanted. So the thing is, so she said, and I watched this interview with her, there's like, look, she visited him, I think, a week or two before he died. And she's like, I didn't say anything to him at the time. It's like, I kind of knew he was dying, but when I was leaving, they asked me, it's like, do you want to rescind this do not resuscitate instruction? And she said, no,
Held up.
I do not.
Right.
Now, she said later on, like after he died, because he did die about a week later, she said, the only thing I regret is that the last time I visited him, I didn't tell him what a bastard he was and how much I hated his guts. Yeah. She's like, I wish I would have told him that, so that would have been the last thing that he heard from me before he died.
Well, he put him through a lot, and fucking, he was abusive to him.
Yeah.
He regretted that, though.
He did, but like I said, in a lot of ways, he said he was sorry, but then he said, I couldn't have been that sorry because I kept doing it.
He couldn't help what he was.
I guess not. But like I said, that's no excuse.
He was what he was.
Yeah.
He was not a fucking normal guy.
Yeah.
And he's fucking very paranoid.
Yeah.
And a control freak.
Oh, yeah.
And when that shit happens, that's how it's going to come out.
Yep.
And the people around him are going to suffer.
Yep.
Although I think he regretted that that's what he was.
He did. And he did say that he regretted it, and he did say that he wished they would forgive him. But like I said, he said, I couldn't have been that sorry.
I look at it as almost kind of like a mental illness.
Clearly. And like I said, when I watched, when he asked the psychiatrist in that last HBO interview, when he asked us, well, what do you think of me? That's, Dr. Dietz, he went into this big long thing about the things that he thought were the matter with him. He's like, look, I think that you probably genetically were programmed to have this thing where you had, fearlessness or maybe like somewhat lack of empathy. That probably came from your family. And then interspersed with, or intertwined with this horrible way that you were brought up. He's like, and also I think you have like it's kind of a paranoid personality disorder where the slight, any kind of criticism or any kind of slight or anything like that, it makes him like blow up and like, turn into a rage monster. He's like, so some of that I think is genetic. And he's like, but, had you been raised in a loving household, you probably would have channeled that into more positive energies. Like I said, being like a test pilot or doing something like that. But because you were raised in a really fucked up environment and didn't have any love, didn't have any role models, and didn't have anything like that, it kind of set you off on this path. And there was really no way of avoiding that once you were in that atmosphere. So he did like kind of lay it out for him that it was like a nature versus nurture. He's like, some of it is genetic probably, but because of your upbringing, you were kind of doomed from the start, which I think he kind of was. Yeah. I mean, his fucking brother got killed by his dad. I mean... Yeah.
And then his other brother fucking raped and murdered a girl and threw the dog over there. I mean, it was... Like I said, he was a man of his place and time. Mm-hmm. He was coming out of a fucking really violent fucking shitty
That's
ass
all
ghetto.
He knew. That is all he knew. And like I said, I'm not excusing it. Because, some people... A lot of people grow up in... environments like that and turn out fine.
But that was his reaction.
But because he had a genetic predisposition, and we talk about this a lot on the show about serial killers and stuff, because he had a genetic predisposition of that type of personality, those two things together, that's a recipe for disaster. If you had genetically were like not programmed to be that way and you had a fucked up childhood, you'd probably turn out okay. Obviously you'd have some traumatic...
Part of his genetic predisposition was his size. He had physical power. Yeah. So there's no reason for him to fucking turn inward and become a fucking passive person. It's more in his favor to fucking go outward and fuck a motherfucker up. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's what he became.
Yeah. Well,
to
clearly.
Fight for his own fucking, to fight for his own space. And in the end, I still think that this guy, he wasn't a sick, twisted, fucking sexual motherfucker like some of these other... He did have a warrior profile. He was... Well, what's a good way to put it? He was just in very unfortunate circumstances, I think. I kind of understand him in a certain way. Yeah. He's dead now. Let that motherfucker rest in peace. You know what I mean? I mean, he had a really bad upbringing, bad childhood, was around a lot of bad people, and he became a mafia
like I said,
hitman.
He wouldn't bother me if he'd only killed other gangsters. Yeah. If he'd only killed other gangsters, I wouldn't be talking about him right now. I think
he was so focused on other gangsters that he didn't consider civilians as being anything.
Maybe that's what it was.
You know what I mean? Like I said, because too much into it.
Because he killed animals, because he killed random people, because he beat up on his wife, and threatened his children.
He was so focused
that's fucked up.
He was so focused on people he thought were dangerous and had to go, and was a way of money. Is that nothing? Other people didn't really fucking even come into.
It seemed like no one really registered.
It's like they didn't register as other people.
I don't.
He was only looking at people who he thought was a threat.
When he talks, he seems not entirely human. Yeah. Like it's not all there. Yeah. And so I think that he projected that onto others.
His vision of what reality was is different than the average person.
Yeah, definitely.
He was totally in the game. Yeah. Totally in the game.
And seriously, if somebody, I don't remember who it was, but somebody on YouTube put all three of the HBO interviews together.
Go watch
it's about 2.5 hours. Yeah. It's like, it's creepy, but it's fascinating because... I don't know. It's like, one, he has like a weirdly like soothing voice because he's just very calm. He doesn't. One time he gets a little bit upset, like with the psychiatrist, but not to a point where he's like yelling or anything. He's just kind of like, well, you almost made me mad right there. And like,
you can hear a seething anger underneath.
Yeah, he's holding back clearly.
He wanted to kill that guy, but he kind of shrugged it off. He's like,
And he was kind of trying to, he went almost a little like introspective, like he was
Yeah.
kind of trying to examine his feelings about why he wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And the psychiatrist, I mean, obviously he's used to, I mean, this psychiatrist he's interviewed Dahmer, he's interviewed like all other serial killers, so he was not intimidated. He just wanted to know why. So he kept asking him, it's like, well, why? You know, why did that make you, like, what happened? Is it because I challenged you? You know, is it because this and that and the other? So he kind of kept asking him what, like, to examine why his feelings about why he wanted to do that.
For me, I always fucking enjoyed watching him because it was a weird hybrid between professional soldier and criminal. I could understand a lot of what he was saying.
Yeah.
Being, you know, ex-infantry and stuff, I can understand a lot of what he was saying.
Well, one thing that he said really struck me, and I thought this was kind of insightful about what he said. Well, the psychiatrist kind of like led him into this, but he kind of like agreed to it. He said that because of his upbringing, he's like, he learned that to care about anything was a weakness.
Yeah, they could be used against you.
That could be, right. And that's, so when the psychiatrist said that to him, he's like, he immediately like understood that. He's like, yes, that's exactly right. He's like, if you care about anything, it is a weakness that can be used against you. And so that was the way he saw the world.
Well, he was, go back, telling the audience, go back and watch his shit. The motherfucker's a war machine, but it's not a normal war. It's a mafia war. I understood it. I'm glad I'm not like that, but I do understand it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, he's interesting from that standpoint because
it was a little extreme from my point of view.
A little. Just a little.
I come from a world where there's uniforms and clear-cut divisions between friend and enemy. You know what I mean? And I understand the concept of frenemy. He lived only in the world of frenemy.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the fucking enemies he killed were his friends.
Yeah. Other than that one guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said that. He's like, he even said,
Yeah.
well, some of the people said, oh, I really liked that dude. But
Right.
then, you know, he got inconvenient for whatever reason, and
Right.
he just killed him. And he didn't feel bad about it.
And he had to have some
He just like, well, had to.
He had to fucking muster a lot of psychological strength not to have an organization and a whole legal system behind him to support what he was doing.
Yeah.
This is an individual doing it on his own.
Yeah.
For his own benefit, money.
And like you said, I think deep
and
down...
he really understood what he was doing. This
Yeah.
isn't some dumbass who's just fucking... He understood exactly what it was he was doing.
Yeah. And deep down, like you said, I do think he felt something, at least for his children. Because he did kind of like get emotional and tear up when he started talking about them and how he would do anything for them. So I don't think that was bullshit. I don't think he was faking.
And another thing is I want to tell the audience is that a lot of these other shitbag serial killers that we're talking about that have sexual motives, to me, they're not interesting. To me, I would just fucking smash those fuckers. Because they don't even have the depth to understand what they're doing. They don't understand the fucking impact of what they're doing.
Right.
They kill some woman just because basically they want to bust a nut.
Yeah.
And they don't think anything of it because there's nothing to those dudes.
Yeah.
There's nothing to them to think about it. Kuklinski knew the implications of everything that he did.
Yeah.
He knew.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He didn't strike me as...
No, he was not this sociopath, psychopath type. He knew full well what he was doing and knew the implications of what he was doing. But he had rationalized and weighed and judged everything as well. This is an enemy. It's an enemy gangster. I'm hired to do this contract. This guy's an evildoer. He would have done the same to me. I'm going to go ahead and fucking do this to get him out of the system and then move on.
Well, and even the people he killed randomly were people that did something to annoy him.
Yeah, yeah.
So he probably justified it that, well, this dude...
Very much like a fucking cop or a judge, jury, executioner, like Judge Dredd. Really is the kind of fucking...
he did seem very much
like that.
And he had made himself like not care about it because he had been doing it for so long.
Right. He's like, well, fuck him. He was wrong. I'm going to kill him.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where
he crossed the border.
And he seemed to have some cognizance of that.
Yeah, he knew everything about it.
He did seem to know that that's why he was doing it.
He knew exactly.
And he knew that it wasn't normal.
Yep. And he knew it was wrong. And
he
knew it was, but he said, you know, his view was that, well, something has to be done.
Yeah.
You know
it did kind of come across like that.
think of it as like a parallel government or a parallel fucking justice system.
Yeah.
But it is not a criminal justice system. It's a justice system being it's a justice system being applied by criminals.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Right.
But yeah, that's, in a way that's what makes him different from a lot of the other serial killers that we talk about. And that's why I found him so interesting, like I said, because you brought him up, on a show before. And I was like, we should probably do a show about that guy because he is.
I'm going to call him a mass murderer, and he's one of the most interesting of mass murderers.
He is very interesting.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't justify anything. It's like he's a fucked up dude, obviously, but.
Yeah, and he did have psychological problems. And stuff.
Clearly, but he's interesting to examine from that standpoint because he's kind of like of like a unique individual in that regard.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to wrap up episode 174. Hope you guys enjoyed it. It's probably like super long as it usually is because we start drinking and start talking. You know how we do. Remember, if you like the show, like, share, subscribe on all your social media. If you would like to financially support the show, that would be much appreciated. All your contributions will be used toward, making the show better, just paying our bills, doing whatever.
Yeah, helping us out getting
this fucking car fixed that we just spent $1,200 fucking dollars on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you would like to do that, you can go to our Patreon account, patreon.com/13o'clockpodcast, or if you go to our blog, 13o'clockpodcast.wordpress.com, there's a button in the sidebar to a PayPal account where you can give a one-time donation if you would like to do that. And with that, we will bring episode 174 to a merciful close. We will see you next time. Bye.